Chapter 711. Adams was a freelance geek. Like most other geeks, he regarded innovation, technology, and fashion as the meaning of his life. He was willing to make his own contribution to the modern electronic society and culture. In early October, he was invited by a Fortune 500 internet company to participate in a geek convention held in the capital of China. Then he spent several days in Beijing, visiting famous tourist attractions such as the Forbidden City and the Great Wall. After he was done, Adams booked a ticket to return to the United States on Jinmei Airlines. He still had a geek party to attend in New York, so he took flight UD 725. At the time of the accident, Adams was sitting in the 7th row of the economy class, near the aisle seat. When he realized that something was wrong, he immediately took out the Selfie Go sports camera that he carried with him, crouched in his seat, and secretly took photos. In fact, Adams was not the only one who secretly took photos in the economy class. Many passengers also turned on the camera on their mobile phones, but they were not as lucky as Adams. First of all, the Go sports camera that Adams used was a high-end product. Not only did it have high pixels, but it also came with optical zoom and triple optical anti-shake function. Therefore, the quality of the video he secretly took was far superior to that of a mobile phone. He was also very courageous. When the burly man fired, he still risked his life to continue filming, so he captured the most complete process of the entire incident. After the secretly filming was completed, Adams quietly copied the video stored in the camera to the USB drive, and then he stuffed the USB drive into his sneakers. The facts proved Adams's cleverness. After the plane made an emergency landing, all the electronic devices of the passengers were confiscated by the FBI, including Adams' Go sports camera. When he got back his camera, the memory card in it was actually replaced with a new one, and the capacity was doubled. The reason was very simple. Adams recorded the scene, and it was not safe to just delete the video. There was a possibility that the technology could recover it, so the FBI simply replaced the original. On the surface, of course, Adams scolded the FBI, but after getting off the plane, he immediately returned to his residence in New York, simply edited the video stored in the USB drive, and uploaded it to his Audiobooks account. The video was labeled UD 725, Jinmei Airlines, Hero, Truth, etc. Audiobooks was the largest social network in the United States and the world, with more than 1.5 billion registered users. It was also the world's largest photo and video sharing website, with more than 500 million photos uploaded by users every day. At the moment, the biggest hot topic on Audiobooks was undoubtedly the UD 725 incident. This was also the place where all kinds of rumors took place. Before the FAA's official statement was announced, countless news and rumors had already spread on Audiobooks, causing people to panic. After the FAA held a press conference, the heat of the incident dropped significantly. After all, there was no hijacking or terrorist attack, so everyone paid less attention to it. But UD 725 was undoubtedly the most popular search term on Audiobooks today. Therefore, when Adams' high-definition video of the scene was uploaded for only half a minute, someone immediately noticed it and forwarded it. Then, like a plague, it spread on Audiobooks. The number of clicks and reposts reached a terrifying level. It only took 10 minutes for it to reach the trending list on the homepage of Audiobooks. This video caused a great sensation in the Audiobooks circle. Countless media reporters heard the news and rushed to download it. At the same time, they desperately tried to contact Adams. When many Audiobooks users saw this video for the first time, they first doubted its authenticity. Because as a candid video, Adams shot it too well. Whether it was clarity, stability, or shooting angle, it was close to professional standards. It gave people the feeling that it was a posed shot. Moreover, the content of the video was also very shocking, especially the process of Liu Chen rushing toward the armed man. The scene of the latter shooting at Liu Chen was simply breathtaking. In such a dangerous situation, Lu Chen completed an incredible counterattack, knocking down the armed man with lightning speed, thus saving flight UD-725 and more than 400 passengers on the plane. Is this real? Could it be a prank made by some cameraman himself? Fuck, is this a clip from a movie? Don't try to fool me. It's too clear. Student Adams, please use some thought. Wouldn't it be more realistic if it's blurred? OMG, is it real or fake? This hero is from China. This doesn't make sense. Go eat sh*t. It's too fake. Whoever believes it is an idiot. I don't believe it either. However, these doubts and abusive comments were quickly slapped in the face. Because soon, media reporters confirmed through interviews with the passengers of the flight that the video was completely real. It was definitely not a staged shot or a scene from a certain movie or TV show. Then, the resourceful CNK bought the copyright of the video from Adams at a high price and broadcast it on their news channel immediately. CNK was the largest TV station in the United States, and its news program was broadcast in more than 30 countries around the world. Its influence was undoubtedly very great. Therefore, when this video news was released, it not only caused a sensation in the United States but also had a certain impact around the world. It was rebroadcast by many authorized TV stations. As the initiator, Adams' personal circle in Tabuk was full of people. While everyone praised him for his courage and means, they were all asking who the hero in this video was. Adams responded quickly, saying that he did not know the name and nationality of the protagonist. He judged that it should be a Chinese sitting in business class. The specific situation was probably only known by the FAA and the FBI. In fact, at this time, the FAA and the FBI were very embarrassed. The former had just announced that the incident was not serious, but the leaked video proved that their definition of the word serious had serious problems. The FBI's negligence allowed Adams to take advantage of the loophole, which was also a big loss of face. However, the two of them could do nothing. After all, this did not involve national security. It was completely an accident, and they could not punish Adams according to the relevant regulations. Moreover, the secretly filmed video had been spread all over the world. It would be a waste of effort to cover it up. Under the pressure of public opinion, the FAA and the FBI had no choice but to announce again that they would release the results of the investigation as soon as possible to give an explanation to all the people who were concerned about this incident. But the media was too lazy to pay attention to the FAA and the FBI. Like the people of the United States, they were most concerned about, who was this hero from China? Chapter 712. Who was this hero from China? The FAA and the FBI definitely had accurate intelligence, but the US media would not target these two bureaucracies because they were too familiar with their behavior. Asking them would be a waste of time. Therefore, Jinmei Airlines was severely harassed, and the crew members of flight UD-725 were also affected. However, Jinmei Airlines also had their own principles. They were determined not to disclose the information of their passengers. As for the flight attendants on this flight, they also had limited information. Jinmei Airlines also issued a gag order to the flight attendants. Before the federal agency's investigation was completed, they were not allowed to disclose any information to the public. After all, they did not dare to offend the FAA. Some other media focused their attention on the video itself and invited professionals to analyze it. They really did analyze a lot of things. Combined with the interviews of the passengers on the scene, plus the video that lasted 3 minutes and 7 seconds, CNK first restored the entire incident. First, at 4:15 a.m., a passenger sitting in the middle seat of the 15th row of the economy class, who was the suspect, suddenly attacked the passenger next to him for no reason. The passenger who was attacked instinctively screamed for help, so a plainclothes air police sitting in the second row of the economy class immediately got up and stopped the suspect. However, the plainclothes air police underestimated the strength of the suspect and was knocked out by the latter. Under such circumstances, a second plainclothes air police officer stood up to rescue his companion and pulled out his gun. After many attacks and terrorist accidents, international flights in the United States were now equipped with two specially trained plainclothes air police officers, one of whom carried a gun. Although the air police's gun was specially made and bullets could not penetrate the cabin wall, it would still pose a fatal threat to the passengers on the plane at close range. Therefore, even though the plainclothes air police officer pulled out his gun, he did not think of immediately shooting the suspect. As a result, he was tragically killed. The suspect's skills and reflexes were very strong. In an instant, he grabbed the air police's pistol and seriously injured the latter with one shot. Then, he fired to scare off several passengers who tried to attack. Then, he threatened the passengers sitting next to the safety door to open it. It was at this moment that the hero from China appeared and took down the suspect in a matter of seconds, saving everyone on flight UD-725. In CNK's news program, the expert first explained to everyone that the plane's safety door could not be opened while it was in flight, so the suspect's purpose was obviously not to hijack the plane. It seemed that he had a mental problem. Based on the suspect's strong performance, he suspected that the man was a specially trained police officer or soldier who suffered from some kind of mental illness, and it was because of the illness that he acted out. And it was precisely this kind of person who was very dangerous. Although the safety door could not be opened, and the pistol he snatched could not penetrate the cabin wall, it still posed a great threat to flight safety. Based on the situation at that time, if not for this hero's intervention, the heavily injured air marshal would not have survived, and the passengers who were forced to open the safety door would not have been able to escape. The consequences would have been unimaginable. Even if the plane lands safely, the expert said in an unquestionable tone, it's impossible that only one person was injured. With the video, the truth, the evidence, and the analysis, CNK's report had created a new viewership record. As for Audiobooks, there was no need to mention it. Countless people were discussing it in full swing. The modern internet was terrifying, but it was also extremely efficient. Countless secrets were often easily exposed on the internet. With the evidence of the crime scene, the suspect was the first to be identified. The suspect's name was Wolf Cook, 32 years old. He was a former member of the U.S. Marine Corps. He had carried out many missions overseas and retired due to injuries in 2015. People who claimed to be Wolf's friend revealed that he suffered from PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD was a psychological disease often suffered by U.S. veterans. According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 22 veterans died of suicide in the United States every day, which was equivalent to a veteran committing suicide every 65 minutes. The total number of veterans who committed suicide each year was more than 8,000, which was equivalent to almost 20% of all suicides in the United States. PTSD was one of the biggest culprits of these tragedies. Wolf's symptoms were not particularly serious, and he was actively receiving treatment. In order to better ease his mood, he chose to travel, and the nearest stop was to China. His abnormal reaction on flight UD-725 was most likely the result of a sudden outbreak of PTSD. The truth was revealed bit by bit. Lu Chen's true identity was not hidden for too long, but it was not his friend who was exposed. Modern news spread extremely fast. Flight UD-725 was a flight from Beijing to New York. Although most of the passengers on this flight were Americans, there were also Chinese. Therefore, as soon as something happened here, the domestic news media quickly reported on it. The Singapore news agency's New York branch office and the Central Television's New York press station immediately sent reporters to the New York International Airport for on-site interviews. They also contacted the FAA spokesperson for a phone interview and passed the news of the local media back to China in a timely manner. In fact, at this time, except for a few people, no one knew that Lu Chen was on flight UD-725. Lu Chen's trip to the United States was very low-key. He did not mention it on Chin Fei Media's official V and his own blog. But when the secretly filmed video appeared on Audiobooks, the situation was completely different. Although Lu Chen did not have much influence in the United States, and few Americans knew him, there were always overseas Chinese or students who watched his movies and TV series and listened to the pop songs he created. Therefore, someone recognized Lu Chen at that time, but they were not sure, so they downloaded the video and put it on a domestic website for people to identify and analyze. Many of Lu Chen's fans were dumbfounded after watching the video. Isn't this Lu Chen? Therefore, the domestic media also exploded. The same video spread rapidly on Wave's blogs, forums, Tiba, and QQ groups, and then Chin Fei Media's phone was blown up. If it weren't for the wrong time, it was estimated that a large number of reporters would have directly blocked the door. Under such circumstances, at 7:30 a.m. Beijing time on the 17th, and 19:30 a.m. New York time on the 16th, Chin Fei Media released an official statement on Wave's blog. The hero who saved Flight UD 725 was confirmed to be Lu Chen. Chapter 713. As soon as Chin Fei Media's official statement came out, it immediately set off a climax of domestic public opinion. Lu Chen's fans were undoubtedly the most excited, because their favorite idol had just done a great thing that caused a sensation in the world, and it was an absolutely positive heroic deed. Damn, this is too awesome, I'm so proud. The video from Audiobooks was crazily pushed to more places by De Chen's fans, such as blog forums, QQ groups, and WeChat moments. As for the domestic media, it was also boiling. The portal website reacted the fastest. It directly put up the headlines, with all kinds of blood-boiling and thrilling titles, and they were all big and bold. As for the TV stations and other official media outlets, their attitudes were relatively reserved and cautious. However, the big TV stations had to pay attention to the direction of public opinion. The small local TV stations were much less principled and directly broadcasted the 3-minute video from their morning news programs. This time, many ordinary people who didn't go online saw it, and they were all shocked and amazed. To be honest, even when Lu Chen's fans saw the video for the first time, they felt unbelievable. Although everyone knew that Lu Chen had good skills, and he wasn't comparable to those little fresh meat stars who sold their faces. Lu Chen saved Tian Tian at the scene of the party in Hangzhou, and beat up the little Japanese bodyguard while filming in Jeju Island. These are all stories that fans relish. But this time, the situation was completely different. First of all, on an international flight, he faced a strong man with a deadly weapon, and it was said that he was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps. That was a real elite. No matter how high one's martial arts was, they would still be afraid of a kitchen knife. Everyone knew that flesh and blood couldn't fight against guns at all. This was the real world, not the fantasy plane in YY novels. Didn't you see the passengers in the cabin being silent under the threat of a small pistol? No one resisted at all. And at the most critical moment, Lu Chen resolutely stepped forward and faced the muzzle of the gun. What kind of courage and boldness did this take? Lu Chen wasn't a barefooted desperado. He was able to do such a move, and it was by no means a hothead. He succeeded. Not only did he dodge the incoming bullets, but he also defeated his powerful opponent in one fell swoop, turning the tide. How could such an idol not be loved and worshipped? The only regrettable thing for fans was that, until now, apart from the official statement of Chin Fei Media, the well-deserved leading actor Lu Chen has not made a sound. The latest blog post on his blog was posted the day before yesterday. As a result, countless fans swarmed into Lu Chen's blog and started a general discussion in his comment section. My Chen is mighty. Summoning Lu Chen big, please show your face, show your chest, show your thighs. Chen, I'm going to shock the entire United States. The people of Shanghai have sent a congratulatory message, congratulating me for making a name for myself in the outer realm and saving the people of the United States from disaster. The people of Mountain City send their congratulations. Do you think Big Lu Qin is injured? Tui tui tui, go to hell with your jinx. Pray for peace. In the past, in Lu Qin's blog, there was always a small group of anti-fans jumping up and down, saying sour words, spitting dirty water, and disgusting people even if they can't win. This time, all the anti-fans disappeared, and the wind in the comment area was completely one-sided. Who dared to say bad things about Lu Qin? Being scolded to death was already a light punishment. Did he really think that people wouldn't launch a human flesh attack? It could be said that with this incident, Lu Qin's reputation and popularity in and out of the circle reached a new peak. There were also some fans who did not pay attention to Waves' blog, but to Tbook instead. Because they found that the people of the United States still didn't know the true identity of Lu Qin, and there were even media outlets on Tbook asking for news at a high price. How could this be? Let's not talk about whether anyone went to get the reward from the American media. There were not a few Chinese people who played Tbook, including Lu Qin's fans. They immediately posted all kinds of information about Lu Qin on their respective Tbooks, including Lu Qin's personal photos, songs, film and television works, etc. All of them were posted. These pictures and facts, information made the American media feel like they had found a treasure. Then they found out that this hero was not only a real Chinese, but also a big star in China's entertainment industry. This was really amazing. Countless American netizens who found out the truth ran across the Pacific to China according to the information provided by the Chinese people on Tbook and left a lot of comments on Lu Qin's Waves blog. The words used by these foreigners were much more exaggerated, all kinds of shocking, all kinds of worship and respect. Then their messages were translated by netizens who understood English, and it gave a big wave of popularity. The social networks in China and the United States were boiling because of Lu Qin alone. At this time, Lu Qin was still sleeping soundly in the Hilton Hotel in Manhattan. His personal phone was on the bedside table charging. The only person who could directly contact Lu Qin was probably Li Mushi, but there were only a few relatives and friends who could find Li Mushi, and Li Mushi didn't want to disturb his rest. Therefore, for the outside world, Lu Qin was temporarily in a state of uncontactable. Until he was awakened by the sound of the bedside phone. What time is it? Lu Qin tried to open his sleepy eyes and found that the sky was completely dark. He reached out and grabbed the phone in a daze, and put it to his ear. Hello? A somewhat familiar voice came from the phone. Mr. Lu Qin, I'm sorry to disturb you. The other party spoke English. Lu Qin suddenly woke up. Mr. Morpheus from the FBI. The other party was surprised. Mr. Lu's memory is really good. I'm Morpheus. This Mr. Morpheus was the FBI official who talked to Lu Qin at the Air Force Base. Because his accent was a little special, Lu Qin remembered it very clearly and recognized him immediately. As for how the other party called his room, Lu Qin didn't even bother to ask. Was it difficult for the FBI to track his whereabouts? Hello, Mr. Morpheus, what can I do for you? Morpheus smiled and said, Mr. Lu, you're now a hero in the news and social media. Here's the thing. We and the FAA will hold a press conference tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, mainly to explain the truth of the UD 725 incident to the public. We hope you can also attend. Lu Qin thought about it and felt that there was no harm in this matter, so he said, no problem. Morpheus was very happy. That's good, we'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning. Also, our president already knows about your heroic deeds. Chapter 714. The President of the United States. Morpheus' last sentence made Lu Qin feel a little overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. The current President of the United States, Roxanne Luster, was the first female president in the history of the United States. Her grandfather, McAdam Luster, was also the 40th President of the United States. This female president, who came from a political family, was smart and powerful. She enjoyed a high reputation in the United States and internationally. She also won the Nobel Peace Prize. This year was already her second term in office. Lu Qin had seen Roxanne in the domestic news many times. He did not expect to have an encounter with the female president of the United States. It could only be said that fate was a wonderful thing. After ending the call with the FBI, Lu Qin was completely awake. He picked up the phone that was already fully charged. He turned it on and saw that it was 8:40 p.m. in the United States. He had slept long enough, but unfortunately, he still had to deal with jet lag. Beep. 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 As Lu Qin was thinking, the mobile phone in his hand suddenly made a vibrating sound, and it was a continuous vibration. The phone had received a large number of messages. Lu Qin's mobile phone was equipped with a private number card. In the address book, other than family members, there were also friends. Only the phone on the address book list could make calls, including short messages. The number of messages was very surprising. He skimmed through them and found that almost everyone had called him and sent him a different number of messages. It seemed like things were getting out of hand. Lu Qin hurriedly called his mother, sister, and girlfriend. He told them that he was staying in the hotel safely and told them not to worry about him. He would return to China soon. At this time, Lu Qin found out that someone had released a video of him on the flight on the internet. It was because the video was uploaded to China that he was recognized. At present, his identity had been completely exposed. Lu Qin was mentally prepared for this. Anyway, even if he did not expose it today, he would not be able to hide it from the press conference tomorrow. It was just a matter of time. He spoke to Chen Feier for the longest time. First, he asked about the situation in China. Then, Lu Qin persuaded his girlfriend to give up the idea of coming to the United States in person. Until the doorbell rang. After informing Chen Feier, he hung up the phone and ran out to open the door. It was Li Mushi who appeared at the door, followed by a hotel waiter who was pushing a dining cart. "Are you awake?" Li Mushi chuckled. "I originally wanted to treat you to a feast tonight, but I know that you must be very busy right now. You don't even have time to answer my call, right? So I asked the hotel to send dinner up." Lu Qin was really hungry. He smiled and said, "Thank you so much." The waiter pushed the dining cart in and skillfully placed the exquisite dishes on the dining table in the suite. Finally, he put flowers and candles on the table. Li Mushi took out a tip and sent the waiter away. Then, she sat at the table with Lu Qin. Lu Qin didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up his knife and fork and started eating heartily. Li Mushi had already had her dinner. She poured herself a glass of red wine and slowly sipped it in her hand. She looked at Lu Qin unscrupulously with a pair of charming eyes. Although the two sides were already very familiar with each other, Li Mushi's eyes still made Lu Qin feel creepy. He couldn't help but ask, "Sister Mushi, why are you looking at me like this? Don't you recognize me?" Li Mushi chuckled, put down her glass and said, "I don't recognize you a little. I didn't expect you to become a hero of the Americans. Why are you so bold? Are you really not afraid?" Lu Qin said frankly, "It's definitely a lie to say that I'm not afraid at all. But at the time, someone had to stand up and stop him. Otherwise, the situation would be unpredictable. And I was also on this flight. If something happened, I couldn't escape. I had no choice. To be honest, the situation at that time was really too dangerous. Even if his reaction was half a second slower, the result was likely to be death on the plane." Now that he thought about it, he was still a little scared. But if Lu Qin had to do it all over again, he would still choose to take the risk without hesitation. Li Mushi looked at Lu Qin in a daze. There was a complicated look in her eyes. There was something that was a little unclear. After a moment, she hurriedly avoided Lu Chen's puzzled eyes. Probably because of the red wine, her face was faintly flushed. She hurriedly got up and said, "I'm a little drunk. I'll go back to my room to rest first." Lu Chen was a little puzzled. The Li Mushi in front of him was not like her usual appearance. She was a lot more feminine, and she was even hesitating when she spoke. But he didn't think too much about it. He got up and said, "I'll walk you out." By the way, Lu Chen briefly told Li Mushi about the FBI informing him to attend the press conference tomorrow. Li Mushi said without hesitation, "I'll go with you." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Okay." He walked Li Mushi out of the room and then came back to finish the late dinner. In the middle, Lu Chen received a call from Liao Jia. "You're so awesome." Liao Jia shouted on the phone, "I've watched your video 3 times. I didn't expect you to be so awesome." Lu Chen said with a smile, "In fact, it's also luck. It's hard to say if I repeat it again." "You don't need to be modest." Liao Jia said, "To be honest, I've only admired one person in my life. You're the second one." Lu Chen didn't need to ask to know that the person who made Liao Jia admire was Gao Yi, the lead singer and soul of the band Black Raven. Gao Yi was Liao Jia's music and spiritual mentor. Even though the latter had passed away many years ago, he had never forgotten her. Lu Chen really felt very honored to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Gao Yi in Liao Jia's heart. After chatting with Liao Jia for a while, he just hung up the phone, but it rang again in less than half a minute. There was no way he could continue eating this meal. Lu Chen had no choice but to answer again. This time, it was Mu Xiaochu who called him. After answering 7 or 8 calls in total, Lu Chen finally finished his dinner. He used the hotel's internal line to inform the front desk to clean up and took out his laptop to go online. As soon as he logged into the Waves blog account, Lu Chen was shocked. News is too scary. Regardless of this, Lu Chen turned over the video. After watching the video from a third party's point of view, he felt admiration for the daring photographer. This guy was really not afraid of death. He dared to take photos of the assailant and was not afraid of being shot. After thinking about it, Lu Chen picked up his mobile phone and walked to the window. He took a few photos of the brightly lit Manhattan Island outside. Then he edited and posted his first blog post since arriving in the United States on the computer. It was to tell everyone, especially his fans, that he was safe. Chapter 7:15. Thank you very much for your concern. Everything is fine at the moment. This was Lu Chen's latest blog post on the Waves blog. The content was very simple, which was to report that he was safe, and then attached a photo of the night view of Manhattan Island that had just been taken. The time he posted the blog post was at 21:55 p.m. on the 16th in New York, and it was 9:55 a.m. on the 17th in Beijing. Therefore, this blog post was like a stone thrown into a pool, and it immediately aroused a huge response. My prayers have been answered, Lu Chen, Big Almighty, I have watched your video 10 times. It's so good. In the Waves blog, I only admire the blogger. Is this in Manhattan? The night view is so beautiful. My heart aches for Chen. Remember to rest well. Everyone was very worried. Now we can finally rest assured. Rest assured +1, the response of the fans was naturally extremely enthusiastic. Now, half of the hot search terms on the front page of the Waves blog were related to Lu Chen. It was really hot. Then, as soon as Lu Chen's blog post was posted, many people in the circle who didn't know each other commented and replied one after another, sending piles of blessings and praises. Some were sincere, and some were completely trying to gain popularity. The entire Waves blog was boiling again because of Lu Chen. The main reason was that this incident was too special. The UD-725 flight incident was currently the hottest focus of Audiobook. Countless American media and people had praised Lu Qin as a hero. Very few Chinese people had received such high praise. And his performance at the critical moment could be called a miracle. All kinds of news from the other side of the ocean spread back to China, and everyone was proud. Especially Lu Qin's fans, they were absolutely proud. The next day, Lu Qin got up early. Due to the need to get over the jet lag, he forced himself to sleep again in the middle of the night last night. He didn't sleep for long. After waking up, Lu Qin first went to the bathroom to wash up. Then, he practiced boxing in the living room for an hour. Finally, he took a comfortable hot bath. When Lu Qin refreshed himself and changed into a new set of clothes, Li Mushi came to his room with breakfast. But before they could finish their breakfast, the people sent by the FBI arrived. The press conference that morning was held in New York City Hall at 9:30. Although there were still 2 hours before the official start, the FBI brought him a draft. The other party was probably worried that Lu Qin would spout nonsense or make a fool of himself at the press conference, so he listed a series of questions that might be asked by the reporters. He then attached the answers as references, as well as notes for attention, and so on. He printed a total of 5 standard A4 papers. Lu Qin didn't reject the FBI's good intentions. He took the document and got into the FBI's car. Li Mushi accompanied him as his assistant. "Mr. Liu, we meet again." The car sent by the FBI was a long black Cadillac. When Lu Qin and Li Mushi sat in the back seat, a middle-aged man sitting in the front passenger seat turned around and greeted him with a smile. "Hello, Mr. Morpheus from the FBI." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Nice to see you again." Mr. Morpheus shrugged and said, "You'll see me often in the next few days." "There's no need," Lu Qin asked in confusion, "is the FBI that free?" Being watched by the FBI wasn't a pleasant thing. To be honest, Lu Qin didn't want to see this Mr. Morpheus again. Morpheus said, "Ensuring your safety in the United States is my current job. I hope you can understand." Li Mushi was sensitive. "You're saying that Lu Qin might be in danger." Her English was much better than Lu Qin's, and she even had a New York accent. Morpheus obviously knew Li Mushi's identity. He smiled and said, "Miss Li, we're just taking precautions against accidents. After all, there are always people who think differently from normal people." Li Mushi didn't say anything else. The FBI officer had a point. Lu Qin was in the limelight now, and he was a Chinese. There was no guarantee that some extremists wouldn't cause trouble for him. Similar situations had happened in the past. In comparison, Lu Qin was much calmer. He wouldn't be staying in the United States for long anyway. The Cadillac blended into the traffic and soon arrived at New York City Hall. New York City Hall was located in the middle of City Hall Park in the downtown area of Lower Manhattan. It was the oldest city hall in the United States still in use. It was built in the early 19th century and was a National Historic Building. The rotunda of New York City Hall was also one of New York's landmarks. It was still the office of the New York City government, as well as the meeting place for the mayor and the New York City Council. The press conference held in New York City Hall was undoubtedly of high standard. After getting out of the car, accompanied by several government officials, Lu Qin and Li Mushi went to the lounge of the City Hall. In the lounge, Lu Qin met a deputy consul from the China Consulate General in New York. Currently, China was also paying close attention to the UD-725 incident, especially since it involved an influential celebrity like Lu Qin. Therefore, they specially arranged for a deputy consul to help Lu Qin deal with matters from the United States government. Lu Qin naturally expressed his deep gratitude for this. At 9:30, the press conference on the UD-725 incident officially started in the conference room of the City Hall. When Lu Chen, accompanied by Morpheus and two other City Hall officials, appeared in the conference room, the room was already filled with reporters from various media outlets. There were at least 20 to 30 cameras on the scene. As for the long and short SLR cameras, there were countless of them. As soon as Lu Chen appeared, all the cameras and SLR cameras immediately pointed at him. The shutters and the flashes of the lights were endless, and the atmosphere of the scene instantly became lively. This press conference was jointly held by the FBA, FAA, and the New York City government. The main purpose was to clarify the truth of the UD 725 incident and give the public an official explanation. As a bureaucratic organization, whether it was the FBA or the FAA, there was no such high efficiency. They would at least need to investigate for a period of time before they would hold a press conference like this. Then the 3-minute high-definition video secretly shot put the FBA and the FAA in a rather awkward position. The truth was basically analyzed and inferred by the media. If the same result was announced in a few days or a week or two, it would undoubtedly make the taxpayers laugh at the efficiency of the two government agencies. Bureaucratic organizations were also afraid of being called bureaucratic, which was why they held this rather hasty press conference. As for Lu Chen, he was undoubtedly the best choice for the FBA and the FAA to divert the media's attention. Chapter 7:16. Two microphones were placed on a long table covered with dark green flannel, and a huge American flag was hung on the wall behind it. 3 officials from the FBI, FAA, and New York City were sitting upright in suits with serious expressions on their faces. After a brief introduction by the host, the press conference began. First, the FAA official reported the details of the incident on flight UD 725. In fact, everyone already knew what happened, but the FAA official added some unknown details to his statement. After the FAA official finished, the FBI official announced the preliminary results of the investigation. Again, there was nothing new. The results of the investigation were basically the same as the media's analysis. The suspect was Wolf Cook, 32 years old, a former member of the U.S. Marine Corps with the rank of sergeant. Wolf Cook participated in many overseas missions for the U.S. military and was a recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal. He retired in 2015 due to injuries. As the media revealed, Wolf suffered from PTSD, which was an important reason for his retirement. The former member of the Marine Corps returned from a trip to China, but his PTSD acted up on the plane. He mistakenly thought that he was being hijacked and attacked by the enemy, so he lost his mind and made a huge mistake. Now, he had completely calmed down and was extremely regretful of his mistake. The FBI would allow a few reporters to interview Wolf at the appropriate time. At this point, the truth of the incident on flight UD 725 was revealed. The FBI had ruled out the possibility of a terrorist attack. It was an accident. Finally, Mr. Morpheus from the FBI expressed his gratitude to Mr. Lu Chen from China. He thanked the latter for his great courage to save more than 400 passengers on flight UD 725 and prevent a tragedy from happening. After he finished speaking, the conference room was filled with thunderous applause. The applause was all for Lu Chen, who was sitting in the middle. Lu Chen was undoubtedly the highlight of this press conference. He firmly attracted everyone's attention. Most of the people present knew Lu Chen from the 3-minute video. However, the video was shot in the cabin, and it was secretly taken. Coupled with the violent movements, it was impossible to give Lu Chen a super clear close-up. Therefore, now that he saw her face to face, the feeling was greatly different. Even a biased reporter couldn't find fault with Lu Chen's appearance. Lu Chen was tall and straight, and his facial features were chiseled and handsome. Even by Westerners' standards of beauty, he was definitely one of the best. Moreover, Lu Chen was very young, and his smile gave people a warm and gentle feeling. It was hard to imagine that this seemingly easygoing big boy actually had such a powerful fighting strength. The Americans' understanding of individual combat power was usually attributed to the image of a burly man with a rough appearance and a mouth full of profanity, the template characters in Hollywood blockbusters. Lu Chen really subverted their common sense. In fact, some Americans have a very complicated mentality about Lu Chen's heroic deeds on Flight UD-725. They admire Lu Chen's bravery and fearlessness, but they are also a little upset. Because the culprit of the incident was an American, and he was also a member of the Marine Corps who had served his country. He should have been the prototype of an American hero. However, in a head-on confrontation, he was defeated by a young man from China. They felt a little embarrassed. Among this group of people, there were also several reporters present. So while they applauded, they couldn't wait to ask Lu Chen their own questions. The official host of the press conference was considerate and immediately announced a free Q&A session. As soon as he finished speaking, a reporter immediately stood up and said, "Mr. Lu Chen, I'm James from the New York Times. I admire your heroic actions on Flight UD-725, but I want to know, what's your evaluation of Sergeant Wolf Cook?" According to the rules of the official press conference, during the free Q&A session, the reporters should raise their hands first, and then the host would choose one of them to ask a question. It was impossible for the New York Times reporter not to know the rules, so he was very anxious. Of course, he was also very confident, because the New York Times was one of the top 3 newspapers in the United States. It was distributed all over the world and had great influence. The host didn't stop James from breaking the rules. His question was quite tricky, and it could be said that he didn't have good intentions. Lu Chen thought for a moment and replied calmly, "I personally think that the accident that happened on Flight UD-725 can't be used as a standard to evaluate Sergeant Wolf Cook. Also, personally, I would prefer to be a friend of Mr. Wolf Cook, not an opponent." "Thank you." James was stunned. Lu Chen's watertight answer made the New York Times reporter unable to find any flaws to continue his attack. It was too accurate. Also, Lu Chen said Sergeant Wolf Cook in the beginning, and Mr. Wolf Cook in the end, which was very meaningful. After a moment of silence, there was another round of applause. The host took the opportunity to say, "Thank you, Mr. James, but please pay attention to the rules." He pointed to another female reporter who raised her left hand. James returned to his seat in embarrassment. He felt his face was a little hot. The blonde reporter who was pointed out stood up and asked Lu Chen again, "Mr. Lu Chen, I'm a reporter from the Daily News. Can you comment on your brave behavior at that time?" The Daily News was also a major newspaper in the United States. Unlike the New York Times, which was politically serious, the style of this newspaper was more social. For example, its reporter was a beautiful blonde with blue eyes. And the major newspaper reporters in the United States had one thing in common, which was that their interview questions were very bold and direct, which was quite difficult to deal with. If ordinary people were faced with their continuous questions, it would be very easy to deal with them. So before coming, the FBA provided Lu Chen with an interview draft so that he would be mentally prepared. But neither James from the New York Times nor the blonde from the Daily News were included in the draft. Lu Chen smiled calmly and said, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." Lu Chen's answer made everyone's eyes light up. Chapter 717. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Lu Chen's words were not only in line with his own deeds, but also contained a deep meaning and a considerable social philosophy. It was also easy to understand and had the charm of a maxim. The greater one's ability was, the greater the responsibility one should bear. However, in this world, there were many people who had great ability or strength but chose to be selfish and only care about their own interests. In contrast, the courage and responsibility that Lu Chen showed were truly admirable. He knew the danger at the time, and it was impossible for him to ignore the power of the bullets. However, in such a dangerous situation, he resolutely rushed to Wolf Cook, who was out of control. In addition to his ability, the most important thing was that Lu Chen had the will to bear the responsibility that matched his ability. Now that I think about the situation at the time, I'm also afraid, but if I were to turn back time, I don't think my choice would change. Stopping Mr. Wolf Cook's irrational behavior was not only to save everyone on the UD 725 flight, but also to save myself. If I were to evaluate my own behavior, I think I did it with a clear conscience. Thank you. When Lu Chen's voice fell, there was a thunderous applause in the conference room of the New York City Hall. Many reporters stood up and applauded for his wonderful answer, and even gave him a thumbs up. The reporters who were qualified to sit here were all from well-known local media in the United States. They were by no means easily convinced, but their admiration for Lu Chen made them abandon all prejudices and send the warmest and most sincere applause. This scene was faithfully recorded by the cameras on the scene and transmitted back to the TV station in real time. Then, it was transmitted to the televisions of thousands of households through cable and wireless networks. In fact, it was not the first time that Lu Chen had said the phrase, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." The last time he said the same thing was in Hangzhou, when he was also asked by reporters, and it was also because of his heroic behavior. Lu Chen's veteran fans were certainly familiar with this phrase, but the Americans had never heard it before. Therefore, through the dissemination of media reporters, it was quickly known and regarded as a real maxim. Later, when Hollywood's Lions Pictures filmed the movie One Flew Across the Pacific based on the UD 725 incident, they used this sentence as the theme of the movie. Of course, this was all later. The press conference continued, and the reporters were even more enthusiastic in their interviews. Of course, they basically used the precious opportunity to ask questions on Lu Chen, leaving the officials of the FBI, FAA, and New York City government to the side. However, these officials did not care. Instead, they were happy to do so. They relaxed and happily watched Lu Chen communicate with the reporters. A reporter asked, "Mr. Lu Chen, did you come to the United States this time for tourism or to seek career development?" According to the revelations on the internet, the reporters present knew that Lu Chen was not an ordinary person, but a big star in the Chinese entertainment industry. He had released albums, made movies and TV, and had a high popularity in China. They were naturally very interested in this and guessed whether Lu Chen came to the United States with the intention of developing in Hollywood. This speculation was not the imagination of the reporters. Because Hollywood was the dream factory of the world's movies, it was the dream place of actors from all over the world. In the past, there were many stars from China who came to Hollywood to make a living. However, there were very few who succeeded. But Lu Chen was different. After experiencing the UD 725 incident, he had become familiar with the majority of the American people. It was equivalent to holding a VIP ticket to Hollywood, and he was qualified to knock on the door of any American film company. Not to mention anything else, the UD 725 incident itself was enough to make a blockbuster. Lu Chen himself was the best choice for the protagonist. In the eyes of the reporters, as long as Lu Chen had a little bit of brains, even if he came to the United States for tourism, he could say that he was looking for opportunities to cooperate with Hollywood. Then, there would definitely be a lot of film companies coming to him to give him the opportunity. Lucky China kid. Many reporters labeled Lu Chen in their hearts. However, Lu Chen's answer was beyond everyone's expectations. "This is my first time in the United States. The purpose of this visit is mainly to participate in business negotiations, because the online crowdfunding in which I hold shares is preparing to go public on NASDAQ." Lu Chen was not a fool. How could he not know what the reporters were thinking? But now he really didn't pay much attention to Hollywood, which everyone was flocking to, so he took the opportunity to advertise on the online crowdfunding website. This advertisement is worth at least millions of dollars, right? The reporter who asked the question was stunned and asked incredulously, Are you a shareholder of the online crowdfunding website? The online crowdfunding website first appeared in China, but after Li Mushi accepted it, she quickly pushed the online crowdfunding website to the world, establishing branches in the United States and Europe and vigorously promoting the online crowdfunding model. This new online fundraising model, with its uniqueness and convenience, was quickly pursued by netizens and small entrepreneurs, and its market potential was favored by investors, so it was able to prepare for listing on Nasdaq so quickly. This reporter happened to have been in contact with and participated in online crowdfunding, and had a certain understanding of the US online crowdfunding website, so he was very surprised. He didn't expect that Lu Qin was actually a shareholder of the online crowdfunding website. In addition to him, there were many reporters present who knew about the online crowdfunding website. Everyone was equally surprised and couldn't help but pricking up their ears to listen to Lu Qin's answer. Lu Qin replied, "Yes, I personally hold 10% of the founder's shares of the online crowdfunding website." Since he had advertised for the online crowdfunding website, he might as well make it bigger. He was not afraid of exposing his details, because once the online crowdfunding website went public, the shareholder information would be made public to all investors, and it would be impossible to hide it. Founder's shares. The reporter was stunned. Are you the founder of the online crowdfunding website? Lu Qin nodded with a smile. The audience suddenly burst into an uproar. This is too Hollywood. Lu Qin is from the mysterious eastern country, China. He is tall, handsome, young, and handsome. He is a well-known film, television, and singer star in China, and has extraordinary skills and courage. He has just become a hero in the minds of the American people. Apart from his skin color, he is already the template of a Hollywood protagonist. Now he is said to be a founding shareholder of an internet company with infinite potential and about to go public. He is simply the protagonist of the protagonist. The reporters suddenly found that there was so much more to write when they went back. What else is there? Lu Qin is simply a deeply buried treasure house. The more he excavates, the more treasures are revealed. Almost all the reporters raised their hands again. Chapter 7:18. The press conference on Flight UD 725 held in New York City Hall lasted for 2 hours. Lu Qin was undoubtedly the real focus of attention. Later, it almost became his exclusive interview. If the host hadn't announced the end of the interview in time, perhaps the reporters would have continued to ask questions. And the final climax of this press conference appeared near the end. New York City Mayor Middleton Fergus actually appeared in the conference room. He came to give Lu Qin a very special reward, the certificate of New York City Honorary Citizen. Middleton Fergus was one of the core figures of the Democratic Party. It was said that at the age of 55, he intended to run for the next U.S. president and enjoyed a high political reputation in the U.S. The arrival of the thin, gray-haired mayor of New York City was surprising, and the honorary certificate he personally awarded to Lu Qin was undoubtedly another surprise. The title of New York City Honorary Citizen was not so easy to obtain. It had to be awarded to foreigners who had made great contributions to New York and had considerable social influence. Generally speaking, the award of New York City Honorary Citizen needed to be approved by the City Council. Even if Lu Qin was eligible to receive this honor, it needed a series of procedures from the City Hall to complete it. However, during the term of the mayor of New York City, there were 2 direct awards. The honorary citizen that Lu Qin received was one of the awards held by Middleton Fergus. This was rarer than being approved by the City Council, so it inevitably caused a sensation at the scene. New York City Honorary Citizen not only represented an honor. With this status, foreigners could enjoy a lot of benefits, such as entry and exit of New York, residence time, work permits, etc. It would be very convenient to apply for U.S. citizenship. Lu Qin was not the first Chinese person to receive the title of New York City Honorary Citizen, but it was definitely the first in the domestic entertainment industry. It was undoubtedly a commendable honor. After Mayor Middleton awarded the certificate to Lu Qin, he chatted with him cordially and took a photo with him. At this point, the press conference was truly over. Back in the lounge, Lu Qin's forehead was covered with fine sweat. These media reporters were much more difficult to deal with than domestic entertainment reporters, and many of the questions were quite tricky. He had to deal with them to avoid being caught by the loopholes in his words. "Your performance can be said to be perfect," Li Mushi gave him a thumbs up. "To be honest, I admire you very much." Li Mushi watched the entire press conference as Lu Chen's assistant. She was impressed by Lu Chen's performance. American reporters weren't easy to mess with. To be able to persist for such a long time and not make any mistakes after being asked so many questions, he was really extraordinary. Lu Qin smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, if this continues, I won't be able to hold on much longer." Li Mushi smiled and said, "Then let's go back. Have a good rest. The negotiation with those people on Wall Street can be postponed for a few days. I believe they won't have any objections." This time, Lu Qin has also given a wave of beautiful advertising publicity to the online crowdfunding website. When the news is broadcast, it will inevitably let more people know about the online crowdfunding website. Big will undoubtedly increase the online crowdfunding website's chips to be listed on NASDAQ. Nowadays, Lu Qin, in the eyes of the Americans, has a heroic aura, and his favorability is max. He appeared in the public eye as the founder of the crowdfunding website, and the publicity effect is really stronger than any advertisement. When Lu Qin specifically mentioned the online crowdfunding website, Li Mushi simply wanted to hug him and kiss him hard. She has more confidence to negotiate with the vampires on Wall Street. The two returned to the Hilton Hotel together. Lunch was treated by Li Mushi in the luxury restaurant of the Hilton Hotel, and Wang Yan was also there. Until now, Wang Yan has finally recovered from her state of panic. Since arriving in New York, she has been in touch with her relatives and friends in China. The taste of experiencing a life-and-death crisis is really hard to describe in words. Just after lunch, Li Mushi received a phone call. She chatted with the other party in English for a few minutes, then hung up and looked at Lu Qin with a strange look. Lu Qin couldn't help touching his face and asked, "What's wrong?" Li Mushi's eyes seemed to have a flower on his face. Li Mushi asked very seriously, "Do you know who called me just now?" Lu Qin was speechless. "How would I know?" Li Mushi showed a proud smile. "It's Irene Christian's assistant." Before Lu Qin could react, Wang Yan was shocked first. "Irene Christian? No way." Lu Qin also remembered who this Irene Christian was. She is the queen of the American talk show. Irene's talk show is the ace program of New York TV in the United States. Since it began broadcasting in 1997, it has maintained the #1 ratings of the same type of program for 20 years. It is also the longest-running daytime TV talk show in the history of the United States. In the United States, this program has an audience of more than 30 million people every week. It is broadcast in more than 100 countries and regions overseas. It is known as the most watched talk show in the history of TV. It has won 35 Emmy Awards and has a great influence. Irene Christian is the well-deserved queen of talk shows. She was born in Queens, New York. Her family was poor since she was a child. Her father died early and her mother was a drug addict. She completely relied on her own hard work to finish college. Later, she entered New York TV as a program assistant. Also relying on her own hard work and talent, she completed the gorgeous transformation from assistant to program editor, and then to program host, becoming an inspirational idol in the hearts of countless Americans. Li Mushi and Wang Yan both studied and worked in the United States, so they are very clear about what Irene Christian's name means. Li Mushi said with a smile, "Irene Christian invited Lu Qin on her program." Those who are qualified to be invited on the program by the queen of talk shows are all current hot people. They must have a great influence, and it is also an honor for the invitees. However, even though Lu Qin knew the name of the queen of talk shows, he did not have much of an impression, let alone feel flattered. Instead, he was more curious about how the other party's assistant called Li Mushi's cell phone. New York TV contacted China first. Lu Shi told them your contact information and mine. Li Mushi waved the cell phone and said, Irene's assistant contacted me first. Chapter 719. After the press conference held by the FBI and the FAA on the UD 725 flight incident, in addition to the live broadcast of the relevant news videos and interviews, the follow-up content was quickly broadcast on major TV stations and quickly appeared on the homepage of newspapers in the United States. At the same time, these news videos were also transmitted to all parts of the world, of course, including China. The domestic public opinion was already in a state of boiling, and this time it was like adding fuel to the fire. For a time, Lu Chen's photos could be seen everywhere on domestic TV stations, newspapers, magazines, and online media. On Wave's blog, the number of Lu Chen's fans exceeded the 70 million mark, surpassing Chen Fei's 10 million, becoming the star with the most fans in the entertainment industry. Countless fans poured into his blog to leave praises. But there are also fans who are worried. They are worried about whether Lu Chen, who has just been awarded the title of honorary citizen of New York City, will choose to emigrate. With this title, if Lu Chen wants to emigrate to the United States, there will be no difficulty at all. The Immigration Service of the United States guarantees that they will welcome him with open hands. With Lu Chen's current exposure and popularity in the United States, once he emigrates to the United States, and then enters Hollywood to develop, none of the 7 major film companies in the United States will not open their doors to him. Such a temptation, I am afraid, is hard to refuse. In the past, there were many popular domestic stars who sharpened their heads to Hollywood. Many of them have emigrated to the United States, but few have been successful. Lu Chen's conditions are much better than theirs. The worries of these fans are not unreasonable, and even caused a lot of reaction and debate in Lu Chen's fan group. However, that night, Lu Chen said on his blog that if there is a chance, he is willing to cooperate with Hollywood film companies, but he has no idea of emigrating to the United States. He said on his blog, I was born here, grew up here, sang and cried here, and would like to sleep here forever. Lu Chen's statement immediately calmed all the debates on whether he should emigrate to the United States on the domestic internet and made him more popular. The day after the press conference, Lu Chen followed Li Mushi to participate in negotiations with Wall Street investors. This was a business negotiation that had originally been scheduled, involving the key to the listing of online crowdfunding on NASDAQ. At present, whether in terms of market scale, response, and profit prospects, online crowdfunding has met the requirements for listing on NASDAQ, but meeting the requirements and going public are not the same thing. To put it simply, if you wanted to make money in someone else's territory, you had to abide by the rules of the game set by them. Otherwise, they wouldn't even let you play, no matter how mature you were. Crowdfunding is listed on NASDAQ, and shares and share value are very important. First of all, Li Mushi's shares are too high, and must be diluted to introduce more investors to form the so-called healthy listing ratio. In addition, U.S. underwriters and brokers were required to underwrite the shares, and a portion of the profits had to be split. Therefore, any foreign company that wanted to be listed on NASDAQ had to go through a fierce process. Li Mushi had been in the United States for several months and had conducted countless negotiations with Wall Street investors. Lu Chen didn't really understand much about these business matters, but as the founder of online crowdfunding and with 10% of the founder's shares, he couldn't stay out of it. In order to ensure that the online crowdfunding could finally be successfully listed on NASDAQ and not let Li Mushi's hard work go to waste, he was duty-bound. The location of the negotiation was in the conference room at the headquarters of Dawson Investment Bank on Wall Street. When Lu Qin and Li Mushi stepped into the Dawson Bank conference room with their assistants and lawyers, many Wall Street elites who had been waiting inside stood up and welcomed them with warm applause. Li Mushi had never enjoyed such treatment before. Their applause was for Lu Qin. Because now Lu Qin was a hero in the eyes of the American people. These elites came up to shake hands with Lu Qin, appearing very enthusiastic and not stingy with their praise. But when they sat down again to start negotiations, they refused to budge on the issue of interests. The whole morning passed in a battle of words. On the way back, Lu Qin sighed and said, "Fortunately, I chose to sing instead of doing business. Otherwise, negotiating with these people would be exhausting." Lu Qin was absolutely sincere. He didn't lack business ideas, but he didn't have a shrewd mind that was good at scheming. No matter how many good ideas he had, they would only be a wedding dress for others. During the whole negotiation process in the morning, Lu Qin basically listened. When it came to his own interests, it was up to Wang Yan to negotiate. He was completely a symbolic existence. Lu Qin didn't think there was anything wrong with this. If he went to negotiate by himself, it was estimated that he would be gnawed clean by these Wall Street elites in the end. Li Mushi said with a smile, "There's been a big breakthrough this time, and you've contributed to it. The key to the breakthrough was yesterday's press conference." Lu Qin really made a good advertisement for the online crowdfunding, which greatly enhanced the popularity of the online crowdfunding and added chips to today's negotiations. So Li Mushi was in a very relaxed mood. She answered a phone call in the car, hung up after a few words, and then said to Lu Qin, "I still have something to do. I'll take you to the hotel gate. Can you solve your lunch by yourself? Wang Yan also needs to come with me." Lu Qin didn't think too much about it and said, "No problem. If there's anything, we'll contact each other by phone." At the entrance of the Hilton Hotel, Li Mushi put Lu Qin down by himself. When she said goodbye, she smiled mysteriously and said, "Then you should pay attention to your health. Don't work too hard." Lu Qin nodded, a little puzzled. But soon he knew what was going on. Back in his room, Lu Qin had just opened the door with his room card when a beautiful figure with a fragrant wind rushed into his arms, giving him a warm and fragrant embrace. "Ah, why are you here?" Lu Qin couldn't believe his eyes, because the person he was holding in his arms was Qin Fei. Qin Fei smiled and said, "Why can't I come? I missed you, so I came." At this moment, Lu Qin's mood really couldn't be described in words. He closed the door with his foot, picked up Qin Fei, and strode towards the bedroom with her in his arms. At this time, there was no need to say anything, just show it with action. Chapter 720. In the luxurious bedroom of the Hilton Hotel, the sound that made people's blood boil lasted for a long time and finally subsided. Qin Fei's crystal-like forehead was covered with fine sweat, and a few strands of beautiful black hair stuck to it, which had a different kind of charm. Her pretty face was flushed and her eyes were closed, like a cat that had just been fed, enjoying the aftertaste of satisfaction. Lu Qin held her with his left hand, and his right hand wandered around the thin silk quilt, which made his girlfriend moan. "Stop it, it's itchy." Lu Qin smiled, hugged her tighter, and asked, "Did you collude with Li Mushi?" In the car on the way back to the hotel, Li Mushi was acting strange. She must have known in advance that Qin Fei would come. Otherwise, how could Qin Fei stay in the room and give him a big surprise? This business suite at the Hilton Hotel was booked by Li Mushi. Qin Fei said with a smile, "What do you mean collude? I didn't let Mushi tell you." Lu Qin said helplessly, "You came here like this. Huiro's studio is going to be shut down, right? You from the Star was in full swing in China and South Korea, and the shooting work of the crew was undoubtedly very tight. Before Lu Chen came to the United States, he negotiated with the director Fang Hui to modify the shooting plan, so that he could squeeze out time. Now that Chen Fei also flew to the United States, the crew was bound to be greatly affected. Chen Fei moved her body to make herself more comfortable in Lu Chen's arms, and said irresponsibly, "Then I don't care. I just want to accompany you." Lu Chen was moved and couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her on the cheek. "It's okay to stop. At most, we'll broadcast one episode a week for a few weeks. It's nothing more than an apology to the audience and fans. In fact, it's not a big deal. It's so good to have you," he said silently in his heart. A strange sound came from under the quilt, breaking the warm and sweet atmosphere between the two sides. "Ah!" Chen Fei suddenly blushed. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Are you very hungry? I'll ask the hotel to send the food up." The service in the Hilton Hotel was very good. Whenever guests wanted to eat, they could lie in bed and open their exclusive app on their mobile phone to order food. It was very convenient and there was no time limit. Chen Fei covered her face with the quilt and said in a low voice, "I didn't eat anything on the plane." Lu Chen laughed, picked up the phone on the bedside table, and ordered a romantic meal for them. When the two of them got up and put on their clothes, an exquisite and delicious meal was sent to their room by the hotel waiter. When they got up and put on their clothes, the room they were in, the room, and the hotel, the Lu Star. Chen Fei was, of course, asking about Lu Chen's experience on flight UD 725. Although she had learned about the whole process of the incident from the media and watched the 3-minute video, it was another thing to hear Lu Chen say it himself. When Lu Chen finished, she couldn't help but hold Lu Chen's hand and said, "Next time, don't be so impulsive." Although Lu Chen said it very easily, how could she not know the danger at that time? Wolf Cook shot at Lu Chen, and he was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps. Chen Fei's palm was cold. Lu Chen nodded and said, "I know, I'll be careful next time." Chen Fei shook her head and said, "I was wrong. There won't be a next time." Her expression was very serious. Lu Chen was speechless and could only change the topic. "By the way, did you get the visa so quickly? It took 10 hours to fly from Beijing to New York." It was Chen Fei's first time in the United States. Usually, it would take 3 days to get an express tourist visa. Of course, this time she got the visa and passport, so it would be much easier next time. The tourist passport was valid for 10 years. So Lu Chen was very puzzled. Wasn't it too fast? Speaking of this, Chen Fei was very proud. "I used my connections, and then the U.S. Embassy gave me special treatment. The main reason was because of you. They were very easy to talk to." So that was the case. Lu Chen suddenly understood, "Since we're here, let's play in the United States for a few more days." Okay. Chen Fei was very happy, but she thought of a very important problem. How do we explain it to the fans? It didn't matter if the two of them played in the United States for a few more days, but the filming and broadcast of You from the Star would definitely be delayed. At that time, the fans and audience would probably be angry. Simple. Lu Chen immediately took the phone and said, "Let's take a photo, explain the situation, and apologize. They will understand." Fans were a very cute group. As long as they treated each other sincerely, they were very tolerant of their favorite stars. "Let me," Chen Fei grabbed the phone and instructed Lu Chen to pose with her. They took more than a dozen photos in one breath. Then she picked out the most satisfactory one and posted it on her account on Wave's blog. The title was, "I just flew to New York to accompany someone, asking for blessings." As soon as Chen Fei's blog post was published, it immediately attracted the attention and comments of countless fans. "Ah, my Fei really flew to the United States. A candlelight dinner, so romantic. Big dog food was suddenly fed to me. I didn't even brush my teeth in the morning. Don't say anything, let's give it a like first. I guessed it a long time ago. Blessings, the fans naturally gave all kinds of likes and sent their blessings. Of course, there were also complaints of being fed dog food. Everyone was very surprised because Beijing and New York were separated by the ocean, and it would take more than 10 hours to fly there. It was really touching that Qin Fei ran to New York to accompany Lu Qin so quickly. Their blessings were also completely sincere. Looking at the entire domestic entertainment industry, it was really impossible to find a better celebrity couple than Lu Qin and Qin Fei. As fans, everyone also hoped that the two could be in love for a long time. It proved that true love was always there. Then, Lu Qin followed up with a blog post, apologizing to all the fans and the audience of Xingyu. He said that due to personal reasons, there would be changes to the filming plan of Xingyu and asked for everyone's understanding. In other words, the broadcast of the follow-up episodes of Xingyu would be delayed, but the fans overwhelmingly expressed their understanding. They wanted the two to have a good time in the United States and make up for it when they returned to China. The fans were actually very easy to talk to. The key was in their attitude. Some celebrities did not understand or did not care. They always treated their fans high and mighty, and as a result, there would not be many supporters left. In this regard, Lu Qin and Qin Fei did their best. After settling the fans, the two of them could have an unexpected sweet vacation in the United States. However, it was not like Lu Qin had nothing to do. Other than attending the business negotiations, he still had to participate in the recording of Irene's talk show. Chapter 721. On the second day Qin Fei arrived in New York, Lu Qin accompanied her to tour the most famous city in the world. The two of them took photos in front of the Statue of Liberty, fed pigeons in Central Park, visited the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and went shopping in Times Square at night, enjoying the prosperity and scenery of the city without restraint. On the third day, Lu Qin was invited to participate in the recording of the new episode of Aaron's talk show. According to the New York TV station, this episode of Aaron's talk show already had invited guests, but it was this celebrity who suggested to Aaron to let Lu Qin participate in the show first. This was because she admired Lu Qin's bravery and fearlessness. Therefore, Aaron's talk show had a rare last-minute change of guests. The recording was in the afternoon. The New York TV station sent a special car to bring Lu Qin and Qin Fei to the TV station headquarters. Although the latter was not a guest, he could get a seat in the audience. In the backstage of the studio, Lu Qin met the talk show host who was named the most powerful woman in the entertainment industry by Forbes magazine, Irene Christian. Irene Christian was 47 years old this year. She was slender and slightly thin. She had short blonde hair and a pair of blue eyes. Her smile made people unconsciously like her, and she had a unique temperament and charm. Lu Qin had heard of this famous host for a long time. He had watched several episodes of her talk show online and had left a deep impression. Irene Christian's show used social hotspots and controversial topics that people cared about as its theme. It never followed the popular shows of others, and thus established a unique and distinct style. In similar shows, her competitors often made the guests confess their personal secrets, or showed the dysfunctional individuals and families of the guests, or even took pleasure in exposing and humiliating the guests in trouble. However, Irene found ways to comfort and help the guests who encountered life or emotional setbacks and hardships, so that they could improve themselves from the bottom of their hearts. She dug a vent for the people who were suffering from mental torture, so that they could happily release their depression. This won her the respect of countless people. "Hello, Mr. Lu Qin." Irene extended her hand to Lu Qin. "Welcome to my show, our hero." Lu Qin smiled and said, it's my honor. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to participate in your show. He shook hands with Erin and introduced Chen Fei. This is my girlfriend, Chen Fei. Chen Fei smiled. Hello, Miss Irene. I'm a fan of yours. Erin was pleasantly surprised. Lu, you have an angel. She didn't shake hands with Chen Fei. Instead, she gave the latter a warm hug. She didn't hide her fondness for Chen Fei at all. Miss Chen Fei, how about you and Mr. Lu appear on my show together? In the New York television station, especially in the program with the highest ratings, Irene's talk show, Irene had supreme power. She could easily change the theme and content of the program, including the guests, as long as she thought it was necessary. Chen Fei hesitated for a moment and declined politely. Thank you for your suggestion, but I think it's more appropriate for me to sit in the audience. Lu Chen should be the only guest protagonist. Irene wasn't displeased by Chen Fei's refusal. Instead, she praised, "You have the heart of an angel." If it were anyone else, they would probably be overjoyed. However, Chen Fei didn't want to take away Lu Chen's attention at this time. This showed her deep love for Lu Chen. Lu Chen held Chen Fei's hand. Before he could speak, Chen Fei shook her head gently and firmly. She knew what Lu Chen wanted to say. But now, Chen Fei just wanted to sit in the audience and applaud him as an ordinary audience member. Lu Chen understood her insistence. He nodded and raised her hand to his lips to kiss it. Irene watched from the side, her eyes shining. She was touched and envious. The recording of the latest episode of Irene's talk show on New York TV began at 2:00 in the afternoon. The 220-seat studio was already full. When the lights on the stage were fully lit and Irene Christian walked out of the backstage wearing a set of beige casual clothes, the audience burst into thunderous applause. Irene! 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 All the audience stood up and applauded her arrival. These audience members weren't hired by the TV station. They were chosen from countless enthusiastic audience members by the TV station. They were all Irene's true fans. Hello everyone. Irene greeted the audience with a smile. Then, she walked to the front of the audience and shook hands with them one by one. Some of the audience members who shook hands with her were so excited that they shed tears. Irene hugged and comforted them. The 3 cameras faithfully recorded this touching scene from different angles. She interacted with the audience for a few minutes before returning to her own stage. As usual, Irene first complained about a few hot news topics. These news topics were closely related to the lives of Americans, such as the ongoing healthcare reform, immigration, and education issues. Irene's comments could be said to hit the nail on the head, and from time to time, she made witty remarks. The applause and laughter of the audience never subsided. After telling a hilarious joke, she said, "After saying so much, I think everyone is looking forward to today's guest, right? Now, let's welcome this guest to our show. Welcome, Mr. Lu Chen from China. Welcome the hero who saved Flight UD 725. Before the recording began, all the invited audience members didn't know the identity of the guest. So when they saw Lu Chen come on stage with a smile, they were silent for a moment before bursting into enthusiastic applause. In the past few days, Lu Chen was undoubtedly the most familiar Asian face to all Americans. His deeds were widely reported by countless TV stations and newspapers. He was one of the biggest hot topics in American society. Therefore, the audience was pleasantly surprised when Lu Chen appeared on Irene's talk show. Their welcome was sincere. At this moment, Chen Fei sat on the far right of the first row of the audience. Her eyes followed Lu Chen's figure closely as she applauded and cheered with the audience. This was Lu Chen's glorious moment, and it also belonged to her. Chapter 722. Lu Qin sat down on the guest seat. The atmosphere of Aaron's talk show was very relaxed. The host and guests sat opposite each other, as if they were chatting with friends. There was no need for too much pressure and apprehension, so it was easy to open up. Aaron asked first, "Mr. Lu Qin, do you have an English name?" Lu Qin thought for a moment and said, "You can call me Dawn." Dawn. Aaron's eyes lit up. Daybreak. Yeah, I like that name. She continued to ask, "Then Dawn, can you tell us your age?" Of course, I know this is a very private question, but before the show started, many people asked me to ask you this question. I think those girls are all your fans. Aaron deliberately emphasized the word girls, causing the audience to laugh knowingly. Lu Qin smiled and said, "There's nothing to hide, I'm 25 this year, 25 years old." Aaron had a look of reminiscence on her face. The best age of my life. I'm thinking about what I was doing when I was 25. Yeah, at that time, I had just entered New York TV station, looking forward to one day becoming a director of a TV station. But until now, I haven't realized my dream. The audience laughed. If Aaron really did realize her dream, it would probably be New York TV station's biggest loss. Aaron asked Lu Qin, "Dawn, I heard you're a singer." Lu Qin nodded. Yes. Aaron, and an actor. Lu Qin, yes. Aaron, and you wrote your own scripts? Yes. The host asked a few questions in a row, and after getting a positive answer from Lu Qin, she was satisfied and introduced Lu Qin's identity to the audience, as well as his status and reputation in China. Many people in the audience only knew that Lu Qin was the hero who saved Flight UD-725, but they had no idea that he had so many other identities, such as being a household name in China. Through such a straightforward exchange, everyone had the most intuitive understanding of Lu Qin from China, letting them know that Lu Qin was not an ordinary person. Then, the topic turned to the UD-725 incident that everyone was most concerned about. Although the truth of the UD-725 flight incident had been completely exposed, and Lu Qin had accepted many media interviews at the press conference, the official interview was obviously different from the current conversation. Aaron's point of view was not to dig for more details or insider information. Instead, she was seriously discussing with Lu Qin about his thoughts during the crisis, as well as the psychological changes after the crisis. What was interesting was that Aaron also asked Lu Qin about his views on the United States. One of the biggest characteristics of Aaron's talk show was that there was no script. As a guest of the show, they had no idea what kind of questions Aaron would ask on the show, nor did they have a teleprompter. And in this interview that would be watched by tens of millions of Americans, Lu Qin's performance could be said to be impeccable. He answered Aaron's questions fluently in English. Although he did not say much, he was humble and appropriate, and occasionally had a few humorous words. This made the atmosphere very good, with the audience applauding, smiling, and laughing from time to time. Many of the audience were really surprised, because in Lu Qin, they saw a very different Chinese person from the impression they were used to. Lu Qin was young, handsome, dashing, frank, generous, and fluent in English. Aaron asked, "If a Hollywood film company were to invite you to shoot a movie, would you stay in the United States to work?" Lu Qin smiled and said, "I'm very willing to cooperate with a Hollywood film company, but for now, I still have a TV series that I have not finished shooting in China, and I also have plans for a movie this year, so I have no schedule for the time being. Actually, I hope that I can get my own movie to be shown in the United States." Aaron smiled and said, "Then I'm looking forward to the day when I can see you on the American screen." Lu Qin said, "Thank you." At this moment, a slip of paper was passed from the audience, and it was passed to Aaron by the field assistant. This was another feature of Aaron's talk show, which was that the audience could write small slips of paper to ask the guests questions. Of course, the question slips had to be screened by the staff first, and there was a limit to the number of questions. Aaron opened the slip of paper and looked at it, then said to Lu Chin, "This is a request from a live audience member. He saw your video on the internet, and he thinks that your singing is very good, so he would like to invite you to sing a song on our show. What do you think?" Lu Chin thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes, can you find me a guitar? A normal one will do." Aaron smiled and said, "Of course, that's not a problem." She gestured to the staff on the sidelines, who quickly picked up the guitar. Lu Chin moved his chair and turned to face the audience. He held the guitar and pondered for a moment, then said, "In my country, there's a saying, when you're in a place, you should respect the customs of that place. So today, I'll sing an English song." Even Aaron was surprised by this. Aaron's talk show had invited many singers, rock, folk, country, rap, etc. There was no lack of singers who would sing a song live. Aaron knew that Lu Chin was also a very good singer, but he was a Chinese. To choose to sing an English song on Aaron's talk show, and not his most familiar native language, it really required a lot of courage and confidence. Wasn't he afraid that he wouldn't sing well and be laughed at by others? But the experienced Aaron did not show any signs of abnormality. Instead, she smiled and applauded for Lu Chin. "I think this should be a very special song." Lu Chin said very seriously, "I want to use this song to pay tribute to my favorite, Evans Joyce. I want to thank him for his great works, which accompanied me through the most difficult years of my life." His words caused the audience to be stunned for a moment, and then there was a warm round of applause. Evans Joyce was the greatest folk singer in American history. He had released 5 albums in his life, and each album sold more than 35 million. His total sales reached 275 million, second only to the band Blue Sky. Evans's folk songs influenced an entire generation of Americans, and he was also one of the favorite foreign singers in the country. When Lu Chin was in college, he had listened to several of Evans's albums over and over again dozens of times. However, this great folk singer passed away in 2007 due to drug abuse. Chapter 723. Well, you only need the light when it's burning low, only miss the sun when it starts to snow, only know you love her when you let her go, only know you've been high when you're feeling low. When Lu Chin strummed the guitar strings and began to sing this song, the studio was very quiet. The audience, including the staff of the TV station, and the host, Irene, were very curious about which song Lu Chin would choose to pay tribute to Evans Joyce, the greatest folk singer in the United States. Would it be "The Way Home"? Would it be "Towards the Distance"? Or "Wildflowers That Never Wither"? These songs were the most classic works of Evans Joyce. However, no one expected that Lu Chin would play and sing a song that they had never heard before. "Only when it's hazy and dim do I think of the light, only when it's snowing do I miss the warmth of the sun, only when I've let go do I know that it's true love, only when I'm at the bottom do I think of the past." Listening to this charming folk song, the listener felt as if they were in a village bar, chatting with strangers about the girl they once loved and the past that had passed away. They suddenly found that there were people in the world who were in the same boat as themselves. That kind of sadness surged in their hearts like a tide. Until the glass was empty, they looked at each other drunkenly, and everything was in silence. Lu Chin's interpretation of this song was soft and soothing, with the calm feelings after letting go. He used a very special and delicate singing method to sing the theme of the work that love could not be recalled and ordinary life was the most precious. The melody of the song was beautiful with a touch of melancholy and sadness, with a touching appeal. Whether the audience had experienced the beauty of love or not, they would be deeply moved. At least, the audience present was moved. Some people were exclaiming softly, some people were thinking, some people couldn't believe it, and some people's eyes were red. "Only know you love her when you let her go," and you let her go, until Lu Chen finished singing the last sentence and put down the guitar in his arms. After a long time, people seemed to wake up from a dream, and the applause in the studio burst out fiercely. Erin was the first to stand up and applaud Lu Chen. Everyone followed suit. "Thank you." Lu Chen stood up and bowed again to express his gratitude. The applause lasted for 2 minutes before it subsided. In the many episodes of Irene's talk show, such a scene was extremely rare. Irene bit her lips, her eyes flashing with a sparkling light. She used all her strength to calm herself down and asked Lu Chen, "Dawn, can you tell me the name of this song?" Lu Chen said, "This song is called Let Her Go." "Let Her Go." Erin repeated the name of the song to herself and asked, "I've never heard this song before. Is it your original?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "It came from the memory of my dream." Erin nodded. She opened her arms and gave Lu Chen a big hug, and said emotionally, "Do you know? I'm Evan's most loyal fan, and he's my best friend. The biggest regret in my life is that I couldn't be by his side when he passed away. Thank you for this song, thank you for not forgetting him." Lu Chen really didn't know that Erin and Joyce had a sincere friendship, but he could completely understand Erin's feelings at this moment. "I also thank you for giving me the opportunity to sing this song." Applause sounded again. On the evening of the 20th, New York TV aired the latest episode of Irene's talk show, as scheduled. Because New York TV had given an advance notice, everyone knew that the guest of this episode of Irene's talk show was the hero who saved Flight UD 725, Lu Chen. Therefore, other than Erin's loyal audience, countless people sat in front of their TVs to watch that night's program. Then it caused a huge reaction. For most adult Americans, Evan's Joyce and his ballads were undoubtedly an indelible memory in their lives, accompanying them through countless lonely nights. Many people had the experience of driving on the long interstate highway and listening to Evans's songs on the radio, other than rock music. Evan's Joyce had many more fans in the United States than Erin. This year was the 10th anniversary of Evans's death, so Lu Chen's tribute to him, Let Her Go, naturally had a special meaning. Most importantly, the style of Let Her Go had a lot of similarities to Evans's, so much so that some people on Audiobooks suspected that Lu Chen had obtained a piece of work that Evans had never published before. Of course, such speculation was ridiculous, and normal people would not believe it. But Lu Chen's performance of Let Her Go spread on social networks in the United States at the speed of light and quickly made it onto the Audiobooks list. Then Evans Joyce's family expressed their gratitude to Lu Chen on Audiobooks. Evans Joyce's life was full of ups and downs. He lost his father when he was very young, and his mother was locked up in the disciplinary center for drug abuse and theft. He grew up in a foster home, and he had a sister who was separated from him at a young age. He had 3 well-known relationships, but none of them were able to come to fruition. This was very deeply reflected in his songs, and it was also a painful memory in his life. The greatest folk singer in the history of the United States was unable to overcome himself and died of drug abuse. And Lu Chen's song, Let Her Go, undoubtedly awakened the fans' memories of Evans Joyce, as well as the sad and melancholy songs. In the latest episode of Irene's talk show, the scene of Irene holding Lu Chen with tears in her eyes after listening to this song also deeply touched the fans. Many singers in the American pop music industry have published articles in memory of Evans Joyce on their respective books, and at the same time expressed their love for Let Her Go. Without any recommendation, Let Her Go reached number 3 on the radio airplay chart on the 22nd, and the 1st to 7th place were all classic songs by Evans Joyce. As a result, hundreds of TV stations, newspapers, and magazines sent invitations to Lu Chen for programs and interviews. Another Evans Joyce fan organization hoped that Lu Chen could attend the memorial event to be held in November. In addition, several Hollywood film companies and record companies have contacted Chinfei Media. However, Lu Chen had no time to care about these disturbances. He stayed in New York for 5 days. After participating in the last business negotiation, he flew to Los Angeles with Chen Feier. Note, Let Her Go, lyricist/composer, Passenger, an English song that I like very much. Chapter 724. After more than half a year of preparation, coupled with more than 2 months of hard negotiations by Li Mushi in the United States, the obstacles to the online crowdfunding listing on NASDAQ have basically been cleared, and the registration and approval process is about to enter. As the price of listing, Li Mushi's shares will drop to 37.5%, and after listing, it will be further reduced to more than 30%, while Lu Chen's 10% shares will also drop to about 5%. However, once the online crowdfunding is successfully listed, Lu Chen's net worth will soar by tens of billions or even billions. After signing a contract memo, he confidently handed over the rest of the work to Wang Yan and Li Mushi, and took Chen Feier to Los Angeles from the east coast of the United States to the west coast. Los Angeles is located in the southwest of California, USA. It is the largest city in California, second only to New York in terms of population. It is known as the City of Angels, and is also known as the entertainment capital. The famous Hollywood is one of the symbols of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is also the last stop of Lu Chen's trip to the United States. He came to this entertainment capital mainly to inspect the top special effects production companies in Hollywood and pave the way for the future development of the special effects team of Chen Fei Media. Hollywood's film industry is the best in the world. It has decades of accumulated experience in special effects production, and its strength is unrivaled. Because of its late start in this regard, although it has made great efforts to catch up, there is still a big gap. Like a Hollywood blockbuster, the investment in special effects production may be as high as hundreds of millions of dollars. For domestic film companies, it is an extremely difficult peak to surmount. High investment leads to high output. Hollywood's status in the industry is not just for show. In the northwestern suburbs of Los Angeles, there are dozens of special effects production companies and studios gathered on a piece of land of less than 10 square kilometers. And any second or third-rate studio is no worse than the team built by Chen Fei Media with nearly $100 million investment. This is the gap in strength. Therefore, Lu Chen came here with a humble and serious attitude to learn. He will never be like some domestic filmmakers, who spend money here to hire a team to produce special effects, and then advertise the work with, produced by Hollywood's top special effects team, only to be scolded in the end. In recent years, many Hollywood special effects teams have come to China to make money, but there has always been the problem of acclimatization. This was the most important reason why Lu Chen put all his effort into building a local team. Walking out of the passenger passage, Lu Chen immediately saw the signboard with his name on it, as well as the blonde girl who was holding it up. "Hello," he brought Chen Feier forward and said, "I'm Lu Chen. Are you Miss Jenny?" The blonde girl in her 30s was stunned for a moment before she smiled warmly. "Yes, I'm Jenny. Mr. Lu Chen, nice to meet you. Welcome to Los Angeles. You can call me Dawn." Lu Chen shook her hand and introduced her to Chen Feier. "This is my girlfriend, Fei." Fei was the English name of Chen Feier. This Miss Jenny was the junior of Li Chao, the chief special effects artist of DreamWorks Special Effects Studio, a subsidiary of Chen Fei Media. She graduated from the University of Southern California and also worked in special effects production. She was currently working for a special effects production studio called Blue Sky Digital. And this Blue Sky Digital was the focus of Lu Chen's visit to Los Angeles. As for this Jenny, Richard had already contacted her a long time ago. She would be in charge of receiving Lu Chen. "Hello, Fei." Jenny gave Chen Feier a warm hug, then said to Lu Chen very seriously, "Dawn, you have a charming girlfriend. I swear, Fei is the most beautiful Asian woman I've ever seen." Chen Feier pursed her lips and smiled happily. Her fame and popularity in China were no worse than Lu Chen's, but in the United States, not many people knew her. Even if they introduced her, they would only say that she was Lu Chen's girlfriend. Although Chen Feier didn't mind, she still felt very happy to hear Jenny's praise. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Thank you, this is my luck." Jenny said, "You are a true hero. You deserve this kind of luck." Although this American chick wasn't very beautiful, her figure was quite good, and she was cheerful and enthusiastic, so they quickly got to know each other. Jenny drove a blue Toyota over and drove the two of them to downtown Los Angeles. As she drove, she asked, "Dawn, how long are you going to stay in Los Angeles?" Lu Chen replied, 2 days, no more than 3 days at most. Since Chen Feier flew to the United States to accompany him, the filming of You from the Star in China had basically stopped. Whether it was the impact or the loss was not small, so he planned to go back as soon as possible. The impact of the UD-725 incident had basically subsided, and the FBI no longer restricted him from leaving the country. "That's a pity," Jenny said regretfully. "There are many fun places in Los Angeles. 2 or 3 days is not enough." Lu Chen smiled and said, "We will come again next time, and we will have to trouble you to be our tour guide." Jenny said, "Of course, it would be best if." "How is Richard these days?" Lu Chen and Chen Feier looked at each other and said, "He is very good. He is currently the chief special effects artist of our company." Jenny nodded, hesitated for a moment, and then asked, "Is he married now?" Sure enough, there was something going on. Lu Chen replied, "No, as far as I know, he has always been single." Jenny nodded and said, "I've never been to the capital before." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Then you can fly over when you have time. Fei and I will treat you to the most delicious food in the world." There was no doubt that Chinese cuisine had a place in the world. Jenny's attention was immediately diverted, and she turned to discuss Chinese cuisine with Lu Chen and Chen Feier. They chatted and laughed along the way, and the Toyota smoothly arrived at the Hilton Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. The room had already been booked, so Lu Chen did not bother Jenny. He made an appointment with her to meet the next day, then dragged his luggage and checked into the luxury hotel chain with Chen Feier. Lu Chen also stayed at the Hilton Hotel in New York. He registered for a VIP membership, which allowed him to enjoy special treatment in Hilton hotels all over the world. After staying at the Hilton Hotel for one night, Jenny called his room at 9 o'clock the next morning. Lu Chen and Chen Feier had just finished breakfast, so they left the hotel to meet up with Jenny. They rushed to the location of the Blue Sky Digital Special Effects production studio and began their formal inspection. Chapter 725. In the northwestern suburbs of Los Angeles, in the Flushing Art Park. There were no high-rise buildings like in the city. 3- or 4-story, artsy buildings were hidden in the shade. The clean roads were wide and straight, giving off a sense of tranquility far away from the bustling city. However, this art park adjacent to Hollywood was an indispensable part of the American film industry. Dozens of special effects companies and studios were gathered here, and the annual output value was astonishing. The Blue Sky Digital Special Effects studio that Lu Chen was going to visit was one of the best. This special effects studio was very young. It had only been established for 5 years, but it had already participated in the special effects production of many Hollywood blockbusters. It had a passionate and energetic team. Moreover, the members of Blue Sky Special Effects were very young. The 3 co-founders, Mill, Andrew, and Christopher, were all graduates of the University of Southern California. The oldest was only 29 years old. It was for these reasons that Richard specifically recommended Blue Sky Special Effects to Lu Chen as a partner of Chenfei Media, instead of other older but more powerful special effects companies. These older companies were often very arrogant. They liked to make money from the Chinese, but they were never willing to share their technology. Even if they were willing to sell some of their shares, they often asked for exorbitant prices. Blue Sky Special Effects was also currently facing financial problems. This studio did not have the problems of big companies, so it was undoubtedly a very suitable partner for Chunfei Media. The only problem was that Blue Sky Special Effects was not well known in the industry. Not many people in the country knew its name, but Richard was sure of their standards. If it wasn't for the fact that Dream Workshop had just received an advertising assignment, Richard would have flown over in person. Jenny's car stopped in front of a 4-story building. The circular building was shaped like a flying saucer. The silver-gray glass curtain wall on the surface shone brightly under the sunlight. The monument erected in front of the entrance door was inlaid with a row of different company logos and names. Blue Sky Studio was located on the 3rd floor of this building. Under Jenny's guidance, Lu Chen and Chunfei took the elevator to their destination. As soon as the elevator door opened, the camera flashes immediately lit up, shocking Lu Chen and the other two. He saw a group of young men and women surrounding the elevator lobby. They were either holding SLR cameras or holding mobile phones. They looked like they were watching excitedly. "Mr. Lu Chen, welcome to our Blue Sky Studio." A young man in a blue t-shirt and jeans took the lead and extended his hand to Lu Chen with a smile. As soon as Jenny stepped out of the elevator, she immediately introduced to Lu Chen, "This is Mil Joyce, the CEO of our studio." Lu Chen suddenly reached out and shook hands with the other party. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Mil Joyce." "Just call me Mir," Miller smiled and said, "They are all my colleagues. When they heard that you were coming, they all came out to welcome you." This was undoubtedly the effect of the hero's aura. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Hello." It didn't matter if Lu Chen greeted them, but the employees of the Blue Sky Studio immediately surrounded him like fans chasing after a star, asking for autographs, photos, and hugs. Then, they uploaded the photos to their respective books. Lu Chen did not expect these Americans to be so enthusiastic, but after all, he was used to such situations. He handled it with ease and satisfied their requests one by one, making the atmosphere very harmonious. This also showed that the Blue Sky Studio was different from other large companies. The atmosphere itself was more relaxed, and the boss and employees were more like close friends, rather than a strict hierarchy of superiors and subordinates. After a simple but warm welcome, Mil introduced several important members of the studio to Lu Chen, including his partner and chief special effects artist, Christopher. Christopher was a very shy young man. He was not tall, thin, and wore a pair of big black-rimmed glasses. His face was covered with acne, and he stuttered when he spoke. However, Richard respected Christopher very much. He told Lu Chen over the phone that this 25-year-old young man was definitely a genius in special effects production. Half of the value of the Blue Sky Studio lay in him. Therefore, Lu Chen was very polite to Christopher, which made Christopher feel a little flattered. Accompanied by Mil, Christopher, and others, Lu Chen and Chunfei visited the studio together. The scale of the Blue Sky Studio was not very large, and the current number of employees was less than 200. It could not compare to a large company that easily had hundreds or thousands of employees. The rented business space was also on the small side, and the interior was quite crowded. However, the company's hardware standards were first class. The workstations used for special effects production were all new, and their computing power was very powerful. They also had the digital synthesis software ZPDT that they were proud of. This set of digital synthesis software was undoubtedly the core technology of the Blue Sky Studio. It had been jointly developed by the 3 co-founders for a full 5 years, and it had been successfully used in the special effects production of many film and television works. It had won a very good response. Compared with the top software in the industry, ZPDT did not have any technical advantages. It was even lacking in detail processing and rendering effects. However, its advantages were that it was not difficult to learn, and it cost less to use. In other words, it was very cost-effective. Moreover, the Blue Sky Studio also intended to further develop a more advanced version of ZPDT, but it lacked enough funds. At present, there were a lot of special effects production companies and studios in Hollywood, and the competition between them was very fierce. If a small company like the Blue Sky Studio could not maintain continuous technological progress and win more business, the result would either be bankruptcy or be swallowed up by a large company. Obviously, the three founders did not want to see either of these two outcomes, so they urgently needed external investment. Meyerchen's enthusiasm for Liu Qin is not just because he is now a popular hero. Liu Qin was rich. The CEO of the Blue Sky Studio had already learned about the strength of Qin Fei Media through Richard Chia. It was definitely a master who did not lack money, so he did his best to talk about his company's technical strength and bright future. To this end, he asked Christopher to demonstrate the special effects of the latest version 2.75 of ZPDT to Liu Qin. Not only that, but Mill also took Liu Qin to the only digital studio in the studio to let the latter personally experience the motion capture technology developed by the studio based on ZPDT. Chapter 726. Motion capture, or mocap for short, referred to the use of sensors, signal capture, data transmission, and data processing equipment to measure, track, and record the trajectory of an object in three-dimensional space, and finally establish the corresponding three-dimensional spatial coordinate data. This technology was first developed in the 1970s as a photographic image analysis tool in biomechanical research. As the technology gradually matured, it expanded to education, training, sports, computer animation, television, movies, video games, and other fields. In 2009, when America's most famous sci-fi director, Mike Cate, filmed the sci-fi blockbuster Starry Sky, the special effects CG was completed using motion capture technology throughout the entire process, achieving the perfect combination of motion capture technology in the film, making mocap a milestone in the film industry. Starry Sky was officially released in 2011, and the global box office exceeded $2 billion. It won 5 Academy Awards, as well as several Oscars for science and technology. Motion capture technology was indispensable. Since the success of Starry Sky, motion capture technology had become popular all over the world, and its development was extremely rapid. In terms of advanced technology, Hollywood special effects companies were absolutely unparalleled in the world. In the past few years, China had also introduced a full set of motion capture technology, but the domestic special effects companies' mocap always had problems with stiff, unsmooth movements, and poor details. There was a huge gap between the standards of Hollywood and mocap. Liu Qin had a certain understanding of mocap. This time in the United States, he was very concerned in this aspect, because in the big wuxia IP plan that he was going to create, it would inevitably involve a large number of motion capture technology, including movies, animation, games, and so on. Therefore, Miller's proposal was exactly what he wanted. Blue Sky Studios' mocap was not the best in the industry, but it had its own unique technology and patents. Compared to their counterparts in the United States, in addition to lagging behind in funds, technology, and personnel, the accumulation of technology research and technology patents was like heaven and earth. Small companies like Blue Sky Studio also invested a large amount of funds and manpower into technology research and development, forming their own advantages and patents. The digital studio it owned had an area of nearly 200 square meters, and a height of 12 meters. It was transformed from the original open-air central garden of the building, and a large number of high-end equipment was concentrated in it. It was considered the studio's core asset. There were hundreds of optical cameras in the studio, which could record the target 360 degrees without any blind spots, and it was also equipped with a 3D holographic scanning system. When Mill introduced them to Liu Qin, there was an indescribable pride in his voice. We are the best. He asked his staff to send him a set of black clothes and said, "This is the FGK data suit that our studio has registered and patented. It has 277 high-precision sensors that can capture the slightest movement. Mr. Lu Qin, do you want to try?" Lu Qin nodded. He was really interested. Miller smiled and said, "Very good. I'll get everyone to prepare. Please put it on first." It was not easy to put on the data suit. With the help of two professionals in the changing room, it took Lu Qin 20 minutes to put it on. The size of the data suit could be adjusted, so it fit perfectly. Lu Qin tried it on, and his joints were very flexible. There was no sense of obstruction. It felt like he was wearing a set of close-fitting underwear. However, it looked very high-tech. Nearly 300 high-precision sensors flashed a faint blue light after they were powered on, creating a psychedelic visual effect. Under the guidance of the staff, Lu Qin came in front of a huge green screen. 3 digital cameras were aimed at him from different positions. Mill stood at the side of one of the cameras facing Lu Qin. There was also a row of computer screens in front of him. The CEO of Blue Sky Studio said aloud to Lu Qin, "Lu, you can play freely. Do whatever you like. Walk, run, jump, whatever you like." Lu Qin's understanding of motion capture technology was limited to the relevant information. This was the first time he had experienced the magic of this technology. After getting used to the data suit, he began to move. Lu Qin did not follow Mill's suggestion. Instead, he improvised a set of mountain-crushing fist. Mountain-crushing fist came from Mo Rant's memory in the dream world. This set of fist technique was not a traditional martial arts routine, but a military boxing technique passed down from ancient times. It was equivalent to ancient military boxing, fierce, and focused on actual combat effects. In the beginning, the speed of Lu Qin's moves was not fast. His punches and kicks were steady and strong. However, as the muscles and tendons of his body gradually became active, the speed of his punches and kicks increased, and the strength increased exponentially. Mountain-crushing fist, as the name suggested, was a fist that could shatter rocks and break mountains. Although it was impossible to truly shatter a mountain in reality, the emphasis on strength and momentum was the essence of this set of fist techniques. The mountain-crushing fist that Lu Qin performed undoubtedly brought this essence into full play. The fist blasted forward, and the wind howled and awe-inspiring. In the studio, there were more than 20 people from Blue Sky Studio. Everyone's attention was on Lu Qin. At first, they were puzzled and did not understand what Lu Qin was doing. Lu Qin's movements were neither boxing nor judo. Could it be a Chinese style of acrobatics? However, soon, the doubts, curiosity, and even mockery on their faces all turned into shock. Mill was dumbfounded. Even at a distance of 5 or 6 meters, he could clearly feel the power contained in Lu Qin's punches. Putting aside the unfamiliar feeling of novelty, Lu Qin's mountain-crushing fist also made him realize what was called the beauty of violence. Although there was no target opponent, Lu Qin's attacks were like a storm, making the onlookers feel suffocated and even tremble. This was because they could imagine themselves standing on the opposite side of Lu Qin, and what kind of harsh blows they would have to endure. This kind of instinctive awe stemmed from life's strong power made everyone hold their breath. The only thing that could be heard in the studio was the whistling sound of Lu Qin's fists and feet breaking through the air. The whistling sound was endless. Then, these Americans could not see Lu Qin's moves clearly. They only saw the shining light of the sensor on the data suit connecting into a faint blue light and shadow, dancing and circling in front of the green screen. Many people swore that this was one of the most incredible scenes they had ever seen in their lives. Chapter 727. Ever since the life-changing dream, Lu Qin began to practice martial arts every day. It gradually became a deep-rooted habit in his life. Usually, unless he encountered a very special situation, he would wake up every morning to practice martial arts to strengthen his body. Compared to 3 years ago, his physique was many times stronger, and his skills were getting more agile and sharp. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to dodge the bullets on Flight UD-725 and subdue a former elite member of the U.S. Marine Corps in one fell swoop. Now that he was wearing the data suit to practice the mountain collapsing fist, it wasn't that Lu Qin was deliberately showing off. He needed to test his opponent's technical strength to determine if he should import it into China in the future to serve his wuxia IP plan. According to Lu Qin's plan, he would release a series of wuxia works in the next 10 years. Then, he would create movies, long-form TV series, online games, mobile games, animated videos, and so on. Due to the uniqueness of the wuxia theme, motion capture technology would undoubtedly play a great role in it. Although in practical applications, actors or stunt doubles didn't need to be so fast, the more advanced the technology, the better the effect it could achieve. Therefore, when Lu Qin used his fists and kicks, he didn't hold back and went all out. This brought great shock to the Americans present. Even Chen Fei, who was the most familiar with Lu Qin, opened her eyes in surprise. She knew that Lu Qin was very good at martial arts, but she didn't expect it to be at such a high level. Whoosh! Lu Qin punched again, but his fist hit the air and made a loud explosion. His figure then stopped, as if time had frozen in that instant. After a while, he pulled back his fist. With a long breath, Lu Qin made an "okay" gesture to Miller, who was already dumbfounded, indicating that he was done. It was only after the other staff reminded him that Miller woke up from a dream. He said helplessly, "Huh. It's over." "Okay, that's great, OMG." He couldn't even speak coherently. Lu Qin smiled and said to the staff next to him, "I'm going to change." Back in the locker room, he changed out of the high-tech data suit and put on his coat. The attitude of the 2 staff members who were in charge of assisting towards Lu Qin had obviously changed. Not only were they much more enthusiastic and considerate, but they even had a bit of worship and respect towards him. He really lived up to his reputation. When Lu Qin returned, Mill finally returned to normal. However, he was still very excited and asked eagerly, "Mr. Lu Qin, what skill did you just demonstrate? Was it a fighting skill from China?" "More accurately speaking, combat techniques," Lu Qin explained. "You can call it China Kung Fu." He said the word Kung Fu in Chinese. Chinese Kung Fu. Miller repeated the words Lu Qin had just said, a little awkwardly. He nodded and gave a thumbs up. Good. He pulled Lu Qin to look at the monitor in front of them. The computer was playing back a full-angle ultra-high-definition video that had just been captured. It used slow motion to show Lu Qin's every move clearly. The image that was displayed on multiple monitors was quite shocking. And this was just the beginning. Christopher personally retrieved a 3D character model from the database and attached the data collected by mocap to it. After a simple rendering, this fantasy elf-shaped 3D character was given Lu Qin's movements. It was as if it was Lu Qin's incarnation, reenacting the mountain-crushing punch on the computer screen. Even though Lu Qin was not an expert, he could see the power of the Blue Sky Studios technology. The most important thing was that the movement was very smooth. There was no stiffness or pretentiousness in it. It was as natural as moving clouds and flowing water. Mill asked, "How was it?" Lu Qin gave him a thumbs up. Good. Mill laughed loudly, looking very proud of himself. To be honest, after dealing with the elites of Wall Street in New York, Lu Qin liked Mill's character even more. He was simple and direct, not a playboy, and his thoughts were all on his face. He pointed to the screen and said, "This set of movements is more suitable for, strong characters." Okay. Mill immediately asked Christopher to replace the elves with orcs, and then redo the rendering. It was the same CG character, but the burly, muscular orc was using the same mountain-crushing punch, but the effect of the aura was completely different. Christopher had even expertly added simple sound effects, and it could be used as a promotional video for a game movie. Lu Chen was very satisfied after watching it. He even had a series of ideas. Richard's recommendation was right. Blue Sky Studio was undoubtedly a suitable partner for Chunfei Media. Of course, he would not immediately decide how much he wanted to invest or anything else. The specific negotiations had to be done by real professionals. What Lu Chen wanted was to buy as many shares of Blue Sky Studio as possible and reach a more favorable agreement. After personally demonstrating Blue Sky Studio's mocap system, Lu Chen's inspection of this special effects studio was complete. They could now sit down and have a formal discussion. Mill warmly invited Lu Chen and Chunfei to have lunch together. The afternoon was not really a negotiation. At most, it was to state their intentions and requirements for cooperation. Mill represented Blue Sky Studio and was willing to sell up to 15% of the shares, and their offer was $60 million. This meant that Mill valued his studio at $400 million. Lu Chen did not express his position immediately. Instead, he said that he would carefully consider Blue Sky Studio's request and hire a professional to evaluate it before carrying out formal negotiations. Mill did not expect Lu Chen to agree immediately. Although he could see that Lu Chen was very interested and sincere, it involved tens of millions of dollars. Even a billionaire would be very cautious. The atmosphere of the conversation between the two sides was still very good. At the time of parting, Mill and Christopher were a little reluctant. Christopher suddenly said, "Mr. Lu Chen, can I upload the video of your Chinese Kung Fu that was shot in the studio today to Book?" His eyes were very eager. "I think it should be seen by everyone in the world." Lu Chen was stunned. After thinking about it, he nodded and said, "Sure. Thank you." Christopher was very happy. He impulsively gave Lu Chen a big hug. "Thank you." Lu Chen smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Compared to Mill, he had a better impression of this rather typical technology geek, so he agreed to the other party's request. Chapter 728. After completing the inspection of Blue Sky Studio, the next day, Lu Chen took Chunfei to Hollywood as an ordinary tourist to get a taste of the powerful American film industry. On October 27, he and Chunfei took a Jinmei Airlines flight back to China. Shortly after the plane took off, Blue Sky Studio's chief special effects artist, Christopher, posted a video on his personal Tbook account, which immediately caused a sensation on the world's largest social media site. The video was about 10 minutes long, and the content was a recording of Lu Chen demonstrating the mocap system in the studio of Blue Sky Studio a few days ago while wearing a data suit. From 3 minutes and 15 seconds onwards, Christopher attached a rear-rendered orc CG and made a split-screen comparison with Lu Chen's demonstration. The title of the video was very simple, Chinese Kung Fu. Although Lu Chen's popularity on Tbook had declined significantly in the past few days, the UD-725 flight incident had become a thing of the past, and the follow-up impact was not great. Other than some veterans organizations that were still using this as a pretext, there were basically not many media outlets that continued to pay attention to him. But thanks to the influence of Irene's talk show, Lu Chen's name was still in the top 10 searches, so Christopher's video with keywords was quickly searched, and then spread like a virus on Tbook. Tbook. After watching the video, many American netizens first felt that it was unbelievable. OMG, is this for real? Brothers, don't be fooled. This is a special effects video with special effects. It's impossible to be that fast. This is not scientific. He must have turned on the video acceleration function. Don't forget, the host is a special effects artist. Chinese Kung Fu. I can only say that it's too amazing. It beats taekwondo and boxing in seconds. The video is accelerated. Can't you see the time displayed on it? The magical Chinese, what they exclaimed and ridiculed was precisely the speed that Lu Chen displayed when he practiced the mountain-crushing fist. It was as swift and violent as a violent storm, causing people to be completely overwhelmed by it. Even the naked eye was unable to see the moves clearly. However, that kind of sharp power could still be clearly felt through the screen. This kind of combat technique that condensed skill, strength, and momentum gave people a great visual impact. Although it also belonged to the category of fighting, the beauty of that violence was truly breathtaking. If Lu Chen wasn't wearing a data suit but a samurai suit, the effect would be even stronger. Christopher might have realized this, so he added a comparison CG, perfectly presenting Lu Chen's mountain-crushing fist on the meticulously rendered CG orc warrior, giving the viewer a different visual impact. The comments on Audiobooks were more turbulent than the tide. Is this a movie or a game? No matter what it is, if it has such an effect, then I will definitely support it. It's really great. After watching this video, I want to learn Chinese Kung Fu. Can anyone teach me? I still can't believe it's real. Soon, professionals jumped out and said that according to their work experience, the video was completely real, without any editing or acceleration, especially the latter part, which was very important. At this time, the doubts turned into amazement. Some people compared the two videos of the UD-725 flight and Blue Sky Studio and thought that Lu Chen's skills and strength had indeed reached some kind of human limit, which was why he could create such an unbelievable miracle. In just 2 hours, Christopher's video had more than 1 million views, and the number of likes and forwards had reached hundreds of thousands. Chinese Kung Fu then appeared on the homepage of Audiobooks. This was the first time the term Chinese Kung Fu appeared on the media and the internet. Then, it was known by everyone in the years to come and was included in the English dictionary. This term also had an inextricable connection with Lu Chen and had been firmly with him for life. As the video continued to be forwarded, the number of Christopher's Audiobooks fans soared by 100 times, and even Blue Sky Studio became famous. Many people Christopher or sent private messages to ask various questions about Lu Chen and Blue Sky Studio. Christopher was silent for a long time, then said through his personal Audiobooks that the video was absolutely real and did not answer the other questions. Interestingly, the netizens on Audiobooks quickly shifted the focus of the debate. They were no longer obsessed with the authenticity of the video, but instead discussed Lu Chen's Chinese Kung Fu, boxing or kickboxing, which was better. The United States accounted for 3 of the 5 major boxing organizations in the world, and the 2 major kickboxing professional competitions were also held in the United States. These 2 professional fighting competitions had countless audiences in the United States, and many well-known champion boxers in the United States emerged. In addition, taekwondo, judo, and so on also had a certain market size in the United States. As the saying goes, there is no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. The question of which was better, boxing or kickboxing, had always existed. Although the two could not be directly compared because of the different rules, the discussion on the internet was in full swing. Now that Chinese Kung Fu had suddenly appeared, there was a clear difference between boxing and kickboxing, so it was inevitable that some people would compare them and the topic became very hot. As a result, 7 hours after Christopher's video was released, the defending champion of the AFS middleweight gold belt in the American Kickboxing Professional League, Jack Ross, posted on his Audiobooks, expressing his interest in having a spar with Lu Chen. Jack Ross had won the AFS middleweight gold belt 3 times in a row. The number of fans on Audiobooks was as high as 10 million, and he could be said to be famous in the United States. His challenge undoubtedly added a fierce fire to this debate. It burst into flames. While the social media in the United States was stirred up by Chinese Kung Fu, the flight that Lu Qin and Qin Fei took landed on the runway of the Capital International Airport. Home. Lu Chen's mood was completely relaxed. He had been in the United States for almost 10 days, experienced a mid-air crisis, then became a hero in the United States, and then appeared on Irene's talk show. It was really too exciting and colorful. However, in Lu Chen's heart, he did not like this kind of excitement and vanity. If he had a choice, he would rather complete this trip to the United States safely. Fortunately, he was accompanied by the person he loved the most. Perhaps after experiencing that dream, he was destined to not live a peaceful life. This was particularly felt when Lu Qin and Qin Fei walked out of the passenger passage together. Chapter 729. Click. Click. The sound of the camera shutter was like rain hitting on a banana leaf, and the flash was blinding. Outside the exit of the passenger passage, there were countless reporters with all kinds of cameras that made people dumbfounded. Lu Qin and Qin Fei, who were walking among the returning passengers, were recognized as soon as they appeared. If the airport had not arranged a large number of security personnel to maintain order at the scene, the reporters would have swarmed over. Even so, they tried their best to put the microphone in front of Lu Qin and Qin Fei. Mr. Lu Qin, can you talk about your trip to the United States? How does it feel to be an American hero? Can you say a few words? Miss Qin Fei, what do you think? Lu Qin, Jack Ross challenged you. Will you accept it? Yes, can you say a few words? Lu Qin had seen a lot of big scenes, but the scene in front of him still made his scalp tingle. If he had known this would happen, he would have taken the VIP passage. He did not expect these reporters to be so powerful. The information about his and Qin Fei's return flight was leaked. Not only did a large number of reporters come to the scene, but many fans came to pick them up. Under normal circumstances, Lu Qin would interact with these hard-working fans, sign autographs, take pictures with them, and so on. But today, he really could not. There were too many people and it was too chaotic. It had a big impact on the order of the airport. So he could only apologetically wave to the fans who held up the support signs. He did not answer any questions from the reporters. Under the escort of several airport security personnel, he met up with Zhang Xiaofang, the assistant who came to pick him up, and left. Sitting in the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz, Lu Qin was finally relieved when the car drove out of the parking lot. Qin Fei wondered, I just heard someone say that Jack Ross challenged you. What's going on? She followed Lu Qin everywhere in the United States and never knew about this. Who was Jack Ross? But since the reporters asked, it was definitely not a trivial matter. Lu Qin shrugged. He was also baffled. Instead, Zhang Xiaofang, who was driving, said, Jack Ross is the AFS middleweight champion of the American Kickboxing Professional League. He has defended his golden belt 3 times. I've seen a lot of his competition videos. He's a very powerful person. Lu Qin frowned. I'm not playing AFS. Why is he challenging me? Zhang Xiaofang smiled and said, Boss, the Chinese Kung Fu that you filmed at Blue Sky Studio was uploaded online and caused a huge sensation in America. Then this golden belt came out to challenge you. So that's how it is. Lu Qin came to a sudden realization and laughed involuntarily. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have agreed to Christopher's request. When he left after inspecting Blue Sky Studio, Christopher had made a request to upload the video. At that time, Lu Qin did not care about it, and also because he had a good impression of the chief special effects artist, so he casually agreed. He did not expect to provoke a challenge from an AFS golden belt. Lu Qin was no stranger to AFS. He had also watched the broadcast of the American Kickboxing Professional League on television and was very impressed by several famous players in it. Strictly speaking, kickboxing and kung fu had a lot in common. The rules were not much different. Jack Ross's challenge was not without reason. If it was a boxing golden belt who challenged him, it would be ridiculous. Zhang Xiaofang continued, now that it has spread to China, it's very noisy on the internet. Your blog has been flooded, and you can't even pick up Boss Lu's phone. You're on the plane, so you don't know. Lu Chen nodded. He spent most of his time resting on the return flight and did not turn on his phone. Of course, he did not know about these things. Although the distance between China and the United States was only about 10 hours, it was enough for a lot of things to happen. Zhang Xiaofang sighed and said, Boss, I found that you're getting better and better. I've also seen the 2 videos on the internet. I'm afraid that even 2 of me combined would not be your match. Lu Chen smiled and said, Brother Zhang, you're too modest. Zhang Xiaofang was not an ordinary person. Although he was Lu Chen's assistant, he was actually a bodyguard. His skills were quite good. When he was free, Lu Chen had sparred with him several times. As they chatted and laughed, the car arrived at Xicheng. Zhang Xiaofang helped to send the bags of luggage that the 2 had brought back from the United States to their home. This time abroad, Chen Fei bought a lot of things in New York, such as bags, perfume, clothes, and so on. It could be considered a big satisfaction of his shopping desire. There were also a lot of gifts for his family and friends. Before leaving, Zhang Xiaofang could not help but ask, Boss, will you accept Jack Ross' challenge? He was actually a fan of Jack Ross. Lu Chen laughed, shook his head, and sent Zhang Xiaofang out of the house. His current identity was a singer, an actor, a screenwriter, not an athlete. He did not need to be in the limelight. Therefore, challenges and duels were too boring. Finally, I'm home. Chen Fei threw himself heavily on the soft sofa and said lazily, going abroad is so tiring. According to the habits of Chinese people, it was better to be at home than at home. Lu Chen felt the same way. Only when he was home could he really relax completely. Therefore, home was the harbor of the soul. He sat down on the sofa, stroked Chen Fei's hair and said, have a good rest. You have to shoot tomorrow. The shooting of You from the Star has been suspended because of the 2 of them. Ah. Chen Fei grabbed a pillow and threw it on him. She said coquettishly, you're so annoying. You just came back and you're talking about work. I don't want to shoot, I don't want to work, I don't want to do anything. Lu Chen laughed and said, well, you can do whatever you want. That's all right, right? Although Chen Fei was older than him, sometimes she was very childish, and he had to coax her to make her happy. Perhaps the 2 of them lived like this. Occasionally quarreling was also very sweet. He reached out and held Chen Fei in his arms. The 2 of them quietly enjoyed their own warm time. But good times were always short-lived. The sound of the key opening the door interrupted Lu Chen and Chen Fei's tenderness. She came. The 2 of them quickly sat up straight. She had the key to the house. Since she could not get through to Lu Chen's phone, she came to the door in person. You too, why didn't you call when you came back? Sister is here to denounce us. Chapter 730. She came over with a big basket of food and vegetables, and she had a lot of things she wanted to say. Don't be so impulsive next time. Think about your family. If something happens to you, what will happen to us and Fei? Don't think that you're strong now. What made his sister angry was still the UD 725 incident. Although it had been more than 10 days, she still had a lingering fear. She grabbed Lu Chen's ear and scolded him endlessly, as if she would scold him for 3 days and 3 nights. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and could only let her scold him without daring to refute. But he didn't feel the slightest dissatisfaction or disgust in his heart. Instead, he deeply felt the deep sibling love that Lu Shi had for him, so he didn't feel uncomfortable listening to her. Instead, he felt a strong sense of warmth. Chen Fei watched with a smile on the side, without the slightest intention of dissuading her. Moreover, when Lucy's mouth was dry, she tacitly gave her a glass of water. Lu Shi scolded Lu Chen for more than 10 minutes. At the end, her eyes were red, and she hugged Lu Chen. "Do you know how worried we were?" Lu Chen was speechless. After a while, he said, "Sister, I know. I won't let you worry about me anymore. This kind of thing happened by coincidence." Chen Fei has said, "Yes, I don't know if he was lucky or unlucky, but he's really fine now." Lu Shi nodded. She reached out to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes and said, "Let's stop talking. I'll go cook for you." Chen Fei quickly got up and said, "Sister Lu Shi, I'll help you." The two went to the kitchen together. They had lunch at home. Although the dishes were not very sumptuous, Lu Shi's cooking skills were inherited by Fang Yun. With the love snacks made by Chen Fei, this lunch was undoubtedly delicious for Lu Chen. After dinner, Lu Shi left. Lu Chen and Chen Fei took their own showers. Chen Fei didn't sleep well on the plane, so he went to take a nap. Lu Chen was still in good spirits, so he ran to the study and turned on the computer. He hadn't been online for the past 2 days, so he didn't know much about the current trend of public opinion on the internet, so he had to pay attention to it. As soon as he logged into his blog account, Lu Chen was shocked. There were too many private messages and ads in the website, and the notifications from the system were terrifying. After spending a lot of effort, Lu Chen finally sorted out his thoughts. First of all, he finished watching the video that the fans had uploaded from Tbook, which was the one that Christopher had personally made. It had caused a great sensation on both Tbook and Wave's blogs. Watching the popular video with himself as the protagonist on the computer, Lu Chen felt that it was very interesting. Christopher's technology was very good, and he completed the CG in just a day or 2. He couldn't help but like it. This also made Lu Chen firmly believe in the idea of cooperating with Blue Sky Studio. At present, for his big IP plan, special effects production was undoubtedly a weak link, because whether it was a martial arts movie, TV series, or games, it would inevitably involve a lot of CG special effects. Although DreamWorks Workshop had been established, it would take more time and more investment to really mature. Investing in Blue Sky Studio and pulling this first-class special effects team into the camp of Chen Fei Media would undoubtedly make up for the weakness in this area and help DreamWorks Workshop grow faster and better. Currently, Lu Chen's business assistant, Wang Yan, was negotiating with Blue Sky Studio in Los Angeles. With the help of Li Mushi, he believed that it was only a matter of time before they reached a cooperation agreement that both parties were satisfied with. After watching the video, Lu Chen turned his attention to Jack Ross again. To be honest, although he had watched the television broadcast of the American Kickboxing Professional League, he really didn't know much about the famous gold belt. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so ignorant when Chen Fei asked. The chat with Zhang Xiaofang in the car earlier also aroused a lot of Lu Chen's interest. There was a lot of information about Jack Ross on the internet. After reading several articles about him, Lu Chen knew that the defending AFS middleweight champion was a very impressive figure. His father, Ross Sr., was a kickboxing player, but because of his mediocre talent, he did not achieve any decent results in his career. Then, he pinned his hopes and dreams on his son. Jack Ross lived up to his father's expectations. He had shown outstanding talent in kickboxing since he was a child. He entered the professional arena at the age of 18 and had a 12-year history so far. He had won the middleweight gold belt 3 times in a row. His record was extremely impressive and he was one of the representative figures of AFS. Jack Ross also had a hobby, which was to challenge the top figures in other fighting events. He had fought with Taekwondo and Muay Thai masters and won all of them. It was precisely because of this that it was normal for him to challenge Lu Qin on Book. It was not a deliberate hype or anything else. Jack Ross' motto was to constantly challenge himself and become the world's most powerful fighting master. On the Waves blog, Lu Qin's fans were clearly divided into 2 factions regarding Jack Ross' challenge. One faction supported Lu Qin's fight with Jack Ross. They believed that with the strength shown by Lu Qin, it would not be a problem to defeat the defending AFS middleweight champion. It would be best if he could snatch the opponent's gold belt. The other faction was far less optimistic. Jack Ross was a real professional player with 12 years of professional fighting experience. Although Lu Qin was very good, how could he compete with him? Most importantly, Lu Qin was a star. What was the point of competing with a professional player? As for snatching the gold belt, it was simply a joke. It was a complete layman's statement and not worth refuting. The 2 factions of fans were in full swing in the comments section of Lu Qin's blog. There was also a group of onlookers watching the show, making it a little messy. Seeing this situation, Lu Qin thought for a while and then wrote a new blog post. In this blog post, he first thanked his fans for their concern and said that he had just returned to China. He would soon be involved in the filming of You from the Star and try to catch up with the lagging progress. As for Jack Ross, Lu Qin admired his achievements in kickboxing. He was very honored by his challenge, but he would not consider it for the time being. Because the video Lu Qin shot at Blue Sky Studio was not to show off or anything else. It was to verify the key technology that would be applied to the martial arts movie, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, which would start shooting at the end of the year. As soon as his response blog post was posted, it immediately caused a wide response on the Waves blog. Chapter 731. In just 3 years since his debut, Lu Qin has won a series of huge and indisputable successes in pop music, TV series and movies, and he himself has also been shrouded in a dazzling halo. He also has nicknames such as Genius Singer, Music Genius, Entertainment Gold Hand, and so on. Now, Lu Qin has been added with a new title, that is, Headline Superstar. Look at the attention that public opinion has paid to him in the past week or so. It can't be said that he is in the headlines every day, but in the entire entertainment industry, who is more dazzling than him? What makes people most speechless is that Lu Qin is not only in the headlines in China, but also in the headlines in the United States. It can be said that he is popular on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, from the east coast of the United States to the west coast, and has influence all over the world. The UD 725 flight incident, Irene's talk show, interview, Chinese Kung Fu, he is always creating new miracles. On Waves blog, the number of Lu Qin's fans has exceeded the 80 million mark, and he has jumped to first place. Therefore, he now casually posts a blog post, and it will receive countless likes, reposts, and comments, not to mention that the content of this blog post is quite informative. My Qin is mighty. It's a pity. I wanted to see the blogger defeat the Americans. It's really childish to say that he will defeat the Americans. This kind of challenge doesn't need to be paid attention to. Lu Qin did the right thing. Support my Qin, hurry up and shoot, You from the Star, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to Lu Qin's big movie. Among the messages left by fans, at least 90% were supportive of him, and a few expressed regret and disappointment. Of course, there were many who urged him to shoot TV series. During Lu Qin's absence from China, the original 2 episodes of You from the Star, broadcast by Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV, have been changed to 1 episode a week, and there will be no sequel after this week's broadcast. For fans of You from the Star, the interruption is simply unbearable, so they have complained on blogs, looking forward to Lu Chen resuming normal shooting work as soon as possible. Now they finally got their wish. The second day after returning to Beijing, the shooting of a Xingyu crew in Huairou Film and Television City returned to normal. Lu Chen and Chen Fei put in a lot of enthusiasm to make up for the lagging progress. Although it had been interrupted for more than 10 days, there were no problems with the crew under the supervision of Fang Hui. In addition, the 2 protagonists were in excellent condition, so today's shooting went very smoothly. From morning to afternoon, they had actually completed almost half an episode of filming. Crack! In the indoor studio specially built for Xingyu, Fang Hui stood up, clapped her hands, and said with a smile, "That's it for today. Thank you for your hard work." As the director, Fang Hui was, of course, the happiest. If all the actors and staff could keep working as they did today, her task would be much easier. During this time, Lu Chen had been in the limelight in the United States, but she was under pressure from 2 TV stations. They didn't dare to rush Lu Chen, so they could only find a balance from her. The main reason was that You, the Star, was too popular. Its ratings were breaking records, and the advertising fees of the TV stations were rising. If it was suddenly interrupted, the loss would be too great. Fortunately, Lu Chen and Chen Fei came back together. Otherwise, Fang Hui would have wanted to use crooked ways to make up for the progress. "I didn't expect you 2 to go to the United States," she said to the 2 of them with a smile. "Not only did your acting not fall behind, but it also improved." Fang Hui was not deliberately flattering them. What she said was completely sincere. Lu Chen and Chen Fei's performance today was great. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Sister Fang, it's been hard on you. Fei and I will treat you to dinner tonight." Fang Hui shook her head and said, "It's not hard on me. Everyone has worked hard." Chen Fei interrupted, "Then we'll treat everyone to dinner. Let's go to Fengyuan Restaurant and have a good meal." Fengyuan Restaurant was a restaurant in Huairou Film and Television City. In addition to providing filming locations, it also received actors, stars, and foreign tourists who came to film. It was the highest grade in the film and television base. There were at least 100 staff members of You, the Star, present today. Chen Fei's words easily spilled at least tens of thousands of yuan. Fang Hui said with a smile, "Since the 2 of you are treating together, then we won't stand on ceremony." Before she finished speaking, the crew members who had heard her cheered, and their morale soared. In fact, everyone could afford a few hundred yuan per person for a meal, but compared to some stingy stars, Lu Chen and Chen Fei were really generous. It was very comfortable to work for them. "Brother Chen," at this time, an assistant rushed in and said to Lu Chen, "2 people from CCTV just came over. They said they have something very important to talk to you about." People from CCTV. Lu Chen and Chen Fei were stunned. If CCTV wanted to talk to Lu Chen, the normal channel would be to contact Chen Fei Media first and finalize the time and place of the meeting through Lu Chen's agent. Why would they suddenly come to the film set? Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Then invite them to Fengyuan Restaurant." In the private room of Fengyuan Restaurant, Lu Chen met the 2 people from CCTV. The man and woman were both in their 30s. After introducing each other, Lu Chen found out that the 2 were not real people from CCTV, but the assistants of the famous director Chen Guizhi. But they were not using the name of CCTV to fool people, because Chen Guizhi was the executive director of the 2018 Spring Festival Gala. The 2 of them served the Spring Festival Gala production team and were ordered to come and talk to Lu Chen. Chen Guizhi was a famous director in the country. This director, who was born in the 60s, had won the Berlin Golden Bear Award, and one of his works was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. He was also famous both at home and abroad because of his many realistic films. In recent years, Chen Guizhi had switched to commercial blockbusters and made 2 blockbusters with a box office of more than 1 billion. He had a very high status in the industry and was a real big shot. This time, CCTV specially invited Chen Guizhi to be the director of the 2018 Spring Festival Gala. It was also because the ratings and reputation of the Spring Festival Gala had been declining in the past few years. They hoped to use this great director to turn the tide. The 2 assistants sent by Chen Guizhi also looked for Chenfei Media first before coming to the film set. After all, the 2 of them had different identities, so there was not much to pay attention to. As for the content of their discussion with Lu Qin, it was very simple. Chen Guizhi intended to invite Lu Qin to participate in the Year of the Dog Gala. Chapter 732. You've been in the limelight too much lately. Back at home in Zicheng Chen Fei said to Lu Qin with a smile, it's hard not to notice. It's reasonable that Chen Guizhi invited you to appear on Central TV's Spring Festival Gala, but it's rare to see him invite you to a show. Central TV's Spring Festival Gala had been held for more than 30 years. Watching the Spring Festival Gala on New Year's Eve had become one of the customs of the Chinese people. Especially for the middle-aged and elderly, not being able to watch the Spring Festival Gala on New Year's Eve was a great regret. Up until now, the Spring Festival Gala's viewership ratings had never been lower than 80%. Its influence was incomparable to that of any other program. More than 30 Spring Festival Galas had also made batch after batch of celebrities popular. It was precisely because of this that not many celebrities could resist the temptation of appearing on the Spring Festival Gala. Every year, when the Spring Festival Gala's program list was released, it meant that there was a lot of competition in the early stages. Many celebrities who were ambitious and qualified to get involved in the Spring Festival Gala would often rack their brains to think of ways to appear on the Spring Festival Gala. If they could have their own program, that would represent the greatest success. For Chen Fei, who had already appeared on the Spring Festival Gala twice, the temptation of the Spring Festival Gala was not that great. Moreover, it was very difficult to appear on the Spring Festival Gala 3 times. He had to give others a chance, right? Since Lu Chen's debut, he had never appeared on the Spring Festival Gala before. Although he had displayed a strong performance right from the start and had achieved great success in the music and showbiz circles, he lacked a strong background and did not put in a lot of effort into his public relations, so how could Central TV possibly take the initiative to approach him? But this year's situation is completely different. Lu Chen's popularity in China has been so high that it can't be ignored. As the most outstanding young singer in the Chinese music industry, and has repeatedly created miracles in movies and TV series, CCTV can no longer ignore him. That would mean offending tens of millions of Lu Chen's fans, a huge group of young viewers. Coupled with the recent series of events that happened to Lu Chen in the United States, Central Television made a decision. Of course, the stately Central TV had its own considerations, which was why Chen Guizhi's 2 assistants came to look for Lu Chen. Since they could represent Central TV to a certain extent, it could also be said that it was under Chen Guizhi's instructions. Furthermore, this was only the preliminary contact, so they could advance or retreat as they pleased. Chen Guizhi definitely has his own ideas. Chen Fei spoke with fervor and assurance. The viewership ratings of the Spring Festival Gala 2 years ago and last year almost hit the red line of 80%. Central TV is definitely hoping that director Chen can salvage the situation, so he will definitely have to make some changes to the traditional Spring Festival Gala programs. Otherwise, if it's still the same old programs, the audience won't buy it either. Lu Chen nodded. Chen Fei's analysis of Central TV, the Spring Festival Gala, and director Chen Guizhi was very accurate. In the early years, Central TV's Spring Festival Gala was the highlight of the general public's New Year's Eve. The viewership ratings were so high that it was envied by many, easily reaching above 95%. But in recent years, with the rapid rise of local satellite television stations and the diversification of entertainment methods, especially the prosperity of new online media, the Spring Festival Gala's viewership ratings have been declining year by year. In addition to the younger audience having more entertainment options, the most important reason was the Spring Festival Gala itself. It lacked good creativity and concept, and there were too many familiar faces coming and going. The quality of the language programs had seriously deteriorated, and the singing and dancing programs stuck to the old conventions, causing the audience to experience aesthetic fatigue. Under such circumstances, Central TV really had no choice but to invite a great director like Chen Guizhi. A few years ago, when the Spring Festival Gala was still being broadcast, there were already endless complaints and scoldings online, so it was very difficult for them to pretend that they did not see it. Even many media outlets joined in the ridicule, and Central TV's reputation was tarnished. This time, when Chen Guizhi's two assistants looked for Lu Qin, they had two main intentions. First, they wanted to invite Lu Qin to participate in the Year of the Dog Spring Festival Gala. As long as he agreed, his name would definitely be on the final program list. This was actually a very great honor. One had to know that many celebrities had been dying to get such an honor, but Lu Qin had easily obtained it. Moreover, it was the Spring Festival Gala's director who took the initiative to send people to him. The treatment was extraordinary. Chen Guizhi's other intention was to hope that Lu Qin could come up with a plan for the Spring Festival Gala and provide good suggestions and ideas. This idea was not something he came up with on a whim. Not to mention Lu Qin's talent in the field of original music, his film and television scriptwriting ability was even more impressive. So far, one of Lu Qin's movies and 3 television series were all his own creations. Even the novels adapted from the television series sold very well. If Chen Guizhi wanted to recover the declining viewership of the Spring Festival Gala, it was undoubtedly far from enough to rely on his own ideas. What he needed was to brainstorm, which was why he revealed his intentions to Lu Qin. In this regard, Lu Qin's reply to Chen Guizhi's 2 assistants was that he needed to consider it carefully. Now, he wanted to hear Chen Fei's opinion. Chen Fei leaned comfortably in Lu Qin's arms and seriously gave him advice. First of all, we can't refuse the Spring Festival Gala, and there is no need to refuse. The key lies in the program. An exclusive singing program is necessary, and you need to strive for it. Group singing or continuous singing is meaningless, and it doesn't match your current popularity and status. In addition, it is important to build a good relationship with Chen Guizhi. She turned to look at Lu Qin. Our company is going to shoot The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer at the end of the year, right? If we can invite Chen Guizhi to be the director, that would be the best. Invite Chen Guizhi to be the director of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer. Lu Qin's eyes lit up. This idea was undoubtedly very bold and courageous. There was no doubt that Chen Guizhi was a good director, and he had international influence. In recent years, he had changed his direction to a blockbuster. If Chen Fei Media could reach an agreement with this famous director, the box office of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer would undoubtedly be greatly boosted. But there was a problem. He is now the director of the Spring Festival Gala. I'm afraid he won't have time to direct The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer at the end of the year, right? Chen Fei smiled. If we can reach an agreement, what's the problem if we delay it until after the new year? We can totally release The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer in the summer of 2018. That's right. Lu Qin was completely convinced. He couldn't help kissing Chen Fei's face. I will listen to you, my wife. Don't be too optimistic. Chen Fei rolled her eyes at Lu Qin and said, it is not easy to invite Chen Guizhi. You don't know how many people are waiting in front of his house with boxes full of money. You have to show your sincerity. For example, in this year's Spring Festival Gala, I see, Lu Chen couldn't help but fall into deep thought. He really had some ideas. Chapter 733. The official meeting between Lu Chen and Chen Guizhi would take place 7 days later at a private clubhouse in Beijing. This clubhouse had a long history and had many members from the business and entertainment circles. It was considered one of the best in Beijing, where there were many crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The environment and privacy were excellent. In order to meet with Lu Chen, Chen Guizhi had specially booked a private room, which fully showed the importance of this great director to Lu Chen. There were only 4 people from both sides meeting. Lu Chen brought Chen Fei, and Chen Guizhi brought his assistant. Chen Guizhi was in his 50s this year. He was very thin and short. He didn't have much flesh on his face, so his cheekbones were high, but his eyes were bright and full of expression. His appearance was very distinctive. After meeting and greeting each other, everyone sat down together. Chen Guizhi said with a smile, "Miss Chen Fei, is getting more and more beautiful. It should be the magic of love." The great director actually made a joke with Chen Fei, which immediately made the atmosphere in the private room relaxed. Chen Fei, pursed her lips and smiled, "Thank you for your compliment. You are also getting younger." She had worked with Chen Guizhi before and had a cameo role in one of the latter's movies. But speaking of which, the two sides hadn't seen each other for several years. The entertainment circle wasn't big. Some people could bump into it every day, but it wasn't small either. It was bustling with people coming and going, and it had an iron camp and flowing soldiers. In response to Chen Fei, slightly teasing response, Director Chen stroked his sparse hair and said with a wry smile, "I'm old. My romantic life will always be blown away by the wind and rain. Now it's the world of you young people." He looked at Lu Chen and said, "Lu Chen, well, is it okay if I call you Xiao Lu?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Director Chen, it's my honor." Lu Chen wasn't being polite. He also admired this great director very much. He was a true great senior. Chen Guizhi nodded and said, "Xiao Lu, I know your time is precious, and I'm also very busy. Let's skip the pleasantries and get straight to the point." Lu Chen hurriedly straightened his back. "Go ahead." Chen Guizhi said bluntly, "I won't hide it from you. After taking on the Central TV Spring Festival Gala, I'm under a lot of pressure. I'm just afraid that the audience won't be satisfied with the final performance. The budget for next year's Spring Festival Gala is about 300 million renminbi. Although it can be earned back through the advertising bids, the people are not satisfied with it. They are cursing on Lunar New Year's Eve. Don't you think that 300 million renminbi is a waste? Do I have any responsibility as the director?" Lu Chen listened quietly, feeling rather emotional. He didn't know much about the Spring Festival Gala, but he knew a little about it. The cost of Central TV's Spring Festival Gala was getting higher and higher, but the viewership ratings were dropping year by year. There were many voices of criticism on the internet, saying that hosting the Spring Festival Gala was a complete waste of the people's hard-earned money. Such a statement was, of course, too extreme. After all, the current Spring Festival Gala was largely run on a commercial model. It wasn't completed by the government's budget, and it had even achieved huge profits. But the big drop in the reputation of the Spring Festival Gala was an indisputable fact. The audience's aesthetic needs were constantly increasing, and Chen Guizhi, who had taken on this responsibility, naturally felt a lot of pressure. And he didn't hide this point at all. Currently, there are about 500 to 600 performances that have been submitted. I've seen more than half of them, but no more than 5 of them caught my eye. Actually, there was something else Chen Guizhi didn't say. That was, as the director of the Spring Festival Gala, he did not have full authority to choose the performances. This was because there were too many people eyeing this area, and it would affect the interests of all parties involved. Chen Guixi's intention was to try his best to get as many high-quality performances on the Spring Festival Gala as possible within the scope of his authority, so that the ordinary audience would be satisfied and happy to watch it. However, it was really not easy to achieve this. Xiao Lu, Chen Guixi said very sincerely to Lu Qin, I've heard a lot of your pop music works. In my opinion, you're currently the best singer and composer in the country, so I hope that you can specially write a song for the Spring Festival Gala. As for the form of the work, it's entirely up to you to decide. In fact, Chen Guixi had already expressed his intentions to Lu Qin in advance through his assistant. Now that he said it again, it was undoubtedly to emphasize the importance and trust he placed on Lu Qin. It must be known that Lu Qin and Chen Guixi did not know each other at all. The two of them had never had any contact with each other. This kind of importance and trust was very valuable, especially when it was placed on the big stage of Central TV's Spring Festival Gala that was watched by hundreds of millions of people. This made even Lu Qin feel the pressure. He and Chen Fei looked at each other, and the latter smiled and nodded. Lu Qin took a deep breath and said, Director Chen, thank you for your kindness. In fact, I also prepared 2 works for you this time. Please guide me. As soon as his voice fell, Chen Fei took out a professional portable music player with headphones and 2 bound music scores from his bag. They were placed in front of Chen Guixi. Looking at the player and the music scores in front of him, Chen Guixi was really surprised. He did not expect that Lu Qin would be so well prepared. He actually brought his works directly. And it was 2 works. After all, he was a young man. Apart from being surprised, Director Chen felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Because he felt that Lu Qin was probably famous at a young age. In addition, he had been in the limelight recently, so his performance was a little impetuous. This was a program that was going to be on the Spring Festival Gala, and he attached so much importance to it. Lu Qin actually used a week to write 2 works and put them in front of him. Even if he was a real genius, could he guarantee the quality that matched the Spring Festival Gala? Of course, on the surface, Chen Guixi just showed an appropriate look of surprise, and then said with a smile, then I really want to listen carefully. He picked up the headphones and music scores, and asked his assistant to help him turn on the player. He began to listen to the works brought by Lu Qin on the spot. When he first listened to the first song, Chen Guixi was very disapproving. But when he heard the first sentence of this song, his expression changed. He became dignified and serious, and there was a little surprise that couldn't be hidden. Then as he listened deeper, his surprise continued to expand, and he even closed his eyes. After the song finished, Chen Guixi suddenly opened his eyes. He first pressed the pause button on the player, and then he couldn't wait to take off the headphones and ask Lu Qin, this song, did you really write it specifically for the Spring Festival Gala? Lu Qin smiled and said, yes, Director Chen. Both songs were specially written by him for the Spring Festival Gala. Just as Chen Fei has said, since he wanted to do a favor, he had to do it properly. Moreover, he had not only prepared 2 music works. Chapter 734. Very good. For Lu Chen's first work, Chen Guixi was not stingy with his praises. It's very good. When he picked up the headphones, he did not have much expectation. He was even a little disgusted. But after listening to the song, the great director's attitude was completely different. He gave a heartfelt praise. Although Chen Guixi was a film director, his appreciation of music was not low at all. In his films, he had always attached great importance to the soundtrack, so he could naturally judge the value of a song. Chen Guixi's assistant, who was sitting at the side, was very surprised because Chen Guixi rarely gave such high praise. Moreover, he was not very interested in the current younger generation of celebrity idols. It was already very rare to get a not bad evaluation from him. At Chen Guixi's status and level, he did not need to flatter Lu Qin at all, even if the latter was the most popular star artist in the country. Therefore, his praise was full of gold. To put it bluntly, if these two sentences were spread out, it would be enough to be on the front page of the entertainment section of many media outlets. Lu Qin said modestly, "Thank you for your praise, Director Qin." Chen Fei secretly gave him a thumbs up. Chen Guixi's praise for Lu Qin made her feel honored. Chen Guixi waved his hand and said excitedly, "Let me listen to the second song." He put on the headphones again and pressed the play button on the music player. 5 minutes later. After listening to the second song, Chen Guixi unexpectedly fell into silence. He seemed to be thinking about a very profound question and did not speak for a long time. Fortunately, everyone was patient enough and waited quietly. After a long time, the great director let out a long sigh and said, "I'm very conflicted right now." Lu Qin and Chen Fei couldn't help but look at each other. Chen Guixi continued, "These two songs are really too good. I don't know which one to choose for the Spring Festival Gala. You should know that in principle, a star can only participate in one show on the Spring Festival Gala. As the world's highest-rated and most-watched large-scale variety show, there was no doubt about the influence of Central TV's Spring Festival Gala. In particular, it made program resources exceptionally precious. There were too many programs that wanted to be part of the Spring Festival Gala. The program selected by a local government often had to go through many trials and pay a very high price to finally be able to make it onto the stage that everyone was watching. As for the influence of the Spring Festival Gala on the celebrities, it was needless to say. Therefore, the Spring Festival Gala had a tacit rule that a celebrity could only participate in one show. Otherwise, it would be too hateful. Now that Lu Qin had brought two songs, of course, he had to participate in his work, otherwise, it would be unreasonable. Chen Guixi liked both songs very much. They couldn't possibly let Lu Qin go on two shows in a row, right? That would be breaking the rules. Although he held considerable authority as the executive director of the Spring Festival Gala, it was not a good precedent to set. That was why he felt conflicted. Understanding Chen Guixi's thoughts, Lu Qin suddenly smiled. "Director Qin, you don't have to be conflicted. I just want to participate in the first song. As for the second song, I'm willing to give the copyright to Central TV's Spring Festival Gala for free." He only took 2 days to compose these two works and then recorded a demo in Chen Fei Media's recording studio. Chen Guixi had a copy of the demo in his hand. Lu Qin had discussed it with Chen Fei before, so he knew the rules of the Spring Festival Gala. Therefore, he had never thought that he would have to go on two shows. The second song was used as a favor. Whether it was given to Central TV or to Chen Guixi, it was very worth it. The copyright to Central TV's Spring Festival Gala for free. Chen Guixi's thoughts were immediately led astray. His eyes suddenly lit up and he clapped his hands. Not bad, the second song is actually more suitable for bel canto singing. It's very good as the finale. The way he looked at Lu Qin changed. "Xiao Lu, you're really good." Chen Guixi had seen many young celebrities, but it was really rare to see a young celebrity like Lu Qin who was talented and knew his limits. He was indescribably satisfied. He had really made the right decision this time. Chen Guixi's assistant was taken aback. He wanted to complain, "Boss, is it really okay for you to praise me like this?" Chen Guixi's appreciation for Lu Qin was completely shown on his face. "Well, since the first song is a group singing," Director Chen pointed to Lu Qin and Chen Fei respectively. "Then you two can do it together." "Aw." Chen Guixi's suggestion was completely unexpected by Lu Qin and Chen Fei. Chen Fei said with a wry smile, "Director Qin, I've been on the Spring Festival Gala twice. In the pop music world, although she was not the only female singer who had been on the Spring Festival Gala twice, there were really very few. As for those who had been on the Spring Festival Gala 3 times, there was no one. And non-pop singers had been on the Spring Festival Gala 10 times. They could be called the real evergreen of the Spring Festival Gala. For Chen Feier, the temptation of the Spring Festival Gala was not too great, but it was another matter to be with Lu Qin, so it was definitely a lie to say that she was not tempted. Chen Guizhi smiled and said, "What's wrong with being on the Spring Festival Gala twice? I remember that the last time you were on the Spring Festival Gala was 13 years ago. It's been 5 years. There's no problem at all." He took 2 of Lu Chen's songs and could only give Lu Chen a performance, so he had the idea of making up for it. It just so happened that Chen Feier was there, and the first song was a group singing, so he simply pushed the boat along with the current. Chen Feier thought for a moment and said decisively, "Thank you, Director Chen." Since Chen Guizhi had said so much, it would be too pretentious to refuse. Chen Guizhi laughed and said, "You're welcome. If you want to thank someone, you should thank your boyfriend." Chen Feier couldn't help but turn her head to look at Lu Qin. Her eyes were full of tenderness and sweetness. Lu Qin smiled and reached out to hold her little hand. After Chen Guizhi finished his big move, he had no intention of letting Lu Qin go. He asked, "Xiao Lu, do you have any good suggestions or ideas for the Spring Festival Gala of the Year of the Dog? Just let me know." He found Lu Qin pleasing to the eye and also had the idea of brainstorming. In fact, he had already gained a lot by receiving 2 excellent original works. Chen Guizhi asked casually, but to his surprise, Lu Qin actually had a trick up his sleeve. He asked Chen Feier to take out another piece of paper. "There's a song." Chen Guizhi was really surprised. "No way." Lu Qin shook his head and said, "It's not a song. Director Chen, please take a look first." With a trace of confusion, Chen Guizhi took the piece of paper handed over by Chen Feier. He only took one look and his eyes were a little dazed. What Lu Qin took out again was really not a song score, but a skit script. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.